It's my pleasure and honor to open the Prosperity Summit with an introduction to Mr. Roy Ellis, our Master of Ceremonies. Roy is Chair of the Economic Development Corporation of North Simcoe Board of Directors and is the EDCNS Manufacturing Ambassador. He was instrumental in pioneering the first McDonald's restaurant in Russia. Roy moved to Midland in 2005 and has focused the majority of his efforts on his management consulting practice, community engagement, and philanthropy. Our fine-tuned engine for growth is becoming a reality as the result of the exceptional support of our very talented board of directors, our municipal and county partners, educators, and industry. Thank you for attending the summit. You're in a room filled with magical synergy and passion. Enjoy the day.
Thank you, everybody here today. This is just a wonderful moment. There's about 150 people, and the word inclusive comes to mind when I look around the room and see who's here today. So we've got a jam-packed agenda. We're going to have some fun. And hopefully we're going to find some synergies between these two verticals of healthcare and advanced manufacturing to give ourselves a competitive advantage. Today's Prosperity Summit is really focused on the convergence, the union, if you wish, of healthcare and advanced manufacturing. Two of the four key pillars of economic activity in North Simcoe, along with the other two being tourism and agriculture. In many circles, EDCNS is often referred to as the power of four, simply meaning four municipalities, Midland, Tiny, Penetanguishene, coming together, pooling their resources to maximize success in four targeted areas of activity, namely advanced manufacturing, healthcare, tourism, and agriculture. So when we add to that number four, the many partners in the room today, it truly feels more like the power of 10. And this becomes North Simcoe's competitive advantage. So I feel both honored and privileged to be your host today. So who are the partners in the room? Our local and visiting manufacturers, many of our local healthcare providers, the County of Simcoe and the four member municipalities, North Simcoe Community Futures Development, ICI brokers and realtors, educators from Georgian College, local schools, and Simcoe County District School. I'd say that's pretty inclusive. But this year, we extended the invite to leaders of the community organizations, such as the BIA, who are here, the Chamber of Commerce, Midland, Penetanguishene and District Builders Association, high school principals, all sitting council members, and various large employers who don't necessarily provide goods and services directly to our healthcare and manufacturing organizations, but truly are foundational to having a complete community. So everyone in this room is special in the sense you individually and collectively play a key role in defining our future. One of the many impressive statistics I'd like to share with you is that North Simcoe is home to 12 of the top 100 employers in the county, and 10 are with us today. I think you would agree we have the right people in the right seats, about to have the right discussion at the right time, necessary to achieve our mission of accelerating growth in advanced manufacturing with a keen eye, a focus on healthcare innovation. So this time I'd like to formally introduce a few guests, so please stand when I call your names. Our EDCNS Board of Directors, I'll have you stand as a group if you don't mind. These people work tirelessly and they're all volunteers, and I'm proud to be the chair of your board, so thank you. Mr. Jeremy Loren. Where did Jeremy go? Oh, he's right behind me. He's getting ready, this guy. He's pumped. I had dinner with Jeremy last night, and what a treat. So Jeremy's our keynote speaker, and we're going to learn a lot from Jeremy today, trust me. Matthew Wilson. Did we see Matthew? Matthew here yet? He got in late last night for a flight from Calgary, and anyhow, Matthew will facilitate maybe our manufacturing panel, and if not, I guess you got me. Chief Mary McHugh King of Bosley First Nation Council, Bruce Stanton, MP for North Simcoe, always a pleasure. Bruce, where's Bruce? There he is. Thank you, Bruce. Jill Dunlop, MPP for North Simcoe, or Simcoe North, I should say. Always, and you know Jill, and I just need to find Jill here. There she is. Hi, Jill. You know, Jill, you're going to witness an orientation of sorts today to North Simcoe's tremendous success, but also to the significant work, obviously, that needs to be done at Queen's Park to continue to fuel this prosperity. So thank you for what you're about to do. And finally, truly, I'd like to thank and acknowledge the tremendous turnout from all 4 member municipalities who some time ago had the forethought and the courage to create the entity known as EDCNS. And it really was about acting in one and speaking with a voice of 50,000 versus maybe 8,000 or 10,000, 12,000. So just leveraging that asset. So we have in the room Mayor Scott Warnock and his team from TAY, that's staff and council. So Scotty, thanks. You were one of the pioneers of this, pal. We also have Gordon McKay, Midland, his council and staff. Another pioneer, Mayor George Cornell from the township of Tiny. I see George over there, and he's also an EDCNS board member, and your staff and council. Appreciate that, George. And last but certainly not least, Penetanguishene Mayor Jerry Marshall, his council and staff. So while this summit is somewhat of a local celebration, oh, sorry, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our true partners too, along with Jerry, David Parks, Rachel Sullivan, and Kelly McKenna. So thanks, there they are, for coming from county. Great partnership, thank you. So while this summit is somewhat of a local celebration, it also supports EDCNS's mission to attract and promote balanced economic growth in North Simcoe. To this end, a special welcome goes out to those of you who traveled from afar to assess the business opportunity and experience the magic of our community. In the event your stay with us today is brief, this short film will serve up a taste of the beauty and charm we experience every day in the heart of Georgian Bay. And for some context here, North Simcoe Tourism hosted a familiarization tour for tourism stakeholders, an event designed to showcase some of the best assets, attractions to their staff, and in turn, the staff promote the area to their customers. That's the purpose. So the FAM Tour film pays tribute to 12 of our 276 cultural and tourism assets amongst a stunning geography. So for those who haven't had much time to look at our beautiful area, and Jeremy and I were talking about last night having a sandwich at the boathouse, you're going to see this stunning geography in 112 seconds. Please.
Day to day will come what may, the sun it lights the path we take. She's so lovely, I could fade away like a backwards Polaroid. We fall between the autumn leaves and talk of all the things we've seen. We sit and smile and frame this scene, the heart of a city noise. Quietly we sleep while the seasons repeat, and we talk about how our little gardens grow, and we talk about that road trip up the coast. We don't talk about all the chances that we've blown, all the things that we should have known. Life's sad enough.
Those of us who live here, we know the value, we know the benefit. There's people that drive here hours every weekend to be where we live, and it really is something special. So hopefully you got something from that film. Speaking of great films, our own local filmmaker, Nate Lacroix, also produced the national award-winning film, The Magic of North Simcoe, and it will be presented throughout the day on a big screen during breaks without sound. Okay. In addition, among other useful content, the film is loaded on the USB stick many of you received at registration. Nate is also filming today's entire summit, and we will send you your personal video in a few weeks' time. Nate is over in the corner. Please wave to the group and allow us to recognize you for your great work. Nate will also be providing a 1-hour film. Nate will also be providing a 1-hour film production of the summit, which Rogers TV is committed to air at least 50 times. So that's pretty cool too. Finally, we have other media here, including the Mirror and Snap. Thanks goes out to Andrew and Rick for helping us turn the volume up on our tremendous growth story being aired right here in the heart of Georgian Bay. So with the goal of setting the stage for today's summit, please allow me to take you back 2 years on a brief journey to our Prosperity Summit of 2016. It was our second summit, and the design called for a maniacal focus on advanced manufacturing. We focused our agenda entirely on activities that support local manufacturing business with their retention and expansion needs. Manufacturing is truly a valuable economic hub of activity in North Simcoe, supporting the gainful employment of 3,700 folks, representing 17% of the working population, a number which far exceeds the Ontario average of 11. At the 2016 summit, we conducted 2 workshops. The first was designed to find solutions to our manufacturers' skilled trades recruitment challenges with a goal to position skilled trades as a competitive, unique advantage. The second was to identify and leverage various funding opportunities to support and enable heightened business growth for our existing manufacturers. Some 2 years later, EDCNS continues to focus significant energy on skilled trades recruitment and development, and it remains a topic for discussion and an action item at each of the 7 manufacturing roundtable meetings we've conducted. In fact, the group once again decided to partner with EDCNS on a 3rd advertising campaign targeted at bringing certified skilled trades talent to North Simcoe. In tandem with this tactic, EDCNS and our local manufacturers work very closely with the county, educators, and other partners to refine our skilled trades curriculum and overall experience so that our youth of the day see the skilled trades path of employment as a viable and fulfilling career opportunity. One example of success with our Funding for Growth workshop in 2016 was the significant grant that Weber Manufacturing Technologies received from the provincial government in excess of $800,000, which supported a project to adopt innovative technology and in turn boost production capacity at the plant by 30%. This grant helped support the purchase of a 5-axis milling machine, the 3rd of its kind in North America, which streamlines the tool-making process and cuts down on production time. Chris and his team made a multi-million-dollar investment, which helped to create 17 new jobs, secure 220 existing jobs, and increase exports internationally. So congratulations to Chris and his team. In summary, the 2016 Summit celebrated local success stories focused on 2 enablers for growth, skilled trades and funding, and forged new partnerships by successfully bringing together 140 key people from industry, government, and education. Without question, our manufacturing sector truly anchors our community in its valued contribution to the quality of life and prosperity that our residents enjoy. Now, before I walk you through today's agenda, I'd like to share with you how we landed on having this meeting where manufacturing and healthcare come together as one in the same room, sort of like when Harry met Sally, right? So as a result of our manufacturing roundtable meetings, we came to realize that several of our local manufacturers were already innovating in the healthcare space. Hence, by bringing the significant parties together from both verticals, we can explore needs and synergies in an effort to build on this innovative base of activity. We recognize that North Simcoe is home to an aging population at a much higher rate than Ontario. We recognize North Simcoe has significant assets in the healthcare space, such as Waypoint, Joliet, and GBGH. And we recognize North Simcoe has the manufacturing capability to both respond and delight. We also recognize the size of the opportunity as both sectors are experiencing significant growth over the last 5 years and combined represent over 7,000 jobs to our community. Simply stated, we can't afford to get this wrong. So now today's objectives meeting agenda. 1, to celebrate our local manufacturers' innovations and successes, and I'd like to applaud the manufacturers in the room first off. Thank you. Second, to engage our healthcare partners, and you're going to hear from them a little later on. Three, to create awareness of North Simcoe's manufacturing and healthcare hubs. They truly are prominent. To generate investment leads to our guests from out of town in support of our business investment strategy, and you'll be sorry if you don't relocate here. And finally, my favorite line, to be proud out loud. So as we take a closer look at today's agenda, I want to emphasize that today is not an end. Economic development is a marathon of sort, and today's summit is just one more step, one more mile in that marathon. We have a very strong manufacturing foundation in North Simcoe, but keep in mind that we are just getting started on our strategy to nurture and grow our manufacturing base with a targeted focus and keen eye on healthcare innovation. Today is an important step, and we're looking forward to your valued input and your timely, rich feedback. You'll have a survey by Sunday. After my brief housekeeping comments, we will receive an address from our keynote speaker, Mr. Jeremy Lorin. Jeremy, who you just met hiding around the corner there, and he's now back in front of me because he thought I was going to be 30 seconds. He's the Vice President of Business Development Commercialization, Ontario Centers of Excellence, and founding President and CEO of Venture Lab. Thank you, Jeremy, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today. Immediately following Jeremy, we will hear from our healthcare panel. Our board member and healthcare ambassador, Mr. Brent Graham, will facilitate the discussion. Thank you, Brent. He spent hours and hours putting this together. Following a short break, Matthew Wilson, I'll get hold of him as soon as I get back to my desk. Oh, he's here? Where is he?
Probably in the lobby.
All right, he's here. Matthew Wilson will talk to us about manufacturing trends to include NAFTA, so that should be exciting. Matthew will then facilitate our second panel discussion featuring 5 exciting local manufacturing companies who each have a powerful story to tell. Each company will explain their business model, highlight some recent innovations and accomplishments, along with some barriers to growth. Finally, Doug Ewan of Magna Closures and a valued board member will close out the day by sharing a few thoughts about EDCNS, today's event, and importantly, next steps. I'm sure he'll take the time to boast about the reasons to work, live, and play in the heart of Georgian Bay. You will have an opportunity to meet with summit guests during the break at 10:15 and over lunch, beginning at 12:15. This networking time will allow us to renew some old acquaintances and forge some new. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Jeremy Lorin. Jeremy joined the Ontario Centers of Excellence 3 weeks ago. So he's just made a huge career change, and he took the time to be here with us today, and we're quite honored to have you here. Prior to arriving at OCE, Jeremy was the founding president and CEO of Venture Lab, an innovation hub for Central Ontario and the Northern GTA, with reaching more than 1.8 million Ontarians. An entrepreneur at heart, Jeremy founded his first of 3 technology firms in Kingston in 1995. Jeremy's work has been global in scope, opening offices in China, Europe, Japan, Korea, and the USA. Jeremy is a featured TEDx speaker on the subject of how impact has contributed to his life as an entrepreneur. Jeremy has served in academia and also in York University's Faculty of Health as an adjunct professor. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jeremy Lorin. Jeremy!
Hi. Thanks, Roy. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Sharon. Great to be here. So I got to Midland yesterday afternoon at about 4 o'clock, stayed at the local hotel, met my 2 new friends, Roy Ellis and Brent Graham, for a lovely dinner at the Boathouse. So I want to thank them both for being so kind and so welcoming. It was a real nice piece of local hospitality. And to my longtime friend, Sharon Vig, that's why I'm here. So if today sucks, it's all on me. If you enjoy it and get something out of it, it's all on Sharon. So I want to thank Sharon in all seriousness for welcoming me to Midland and to be with you guys this morning for a couple minutes. So I'll get started here. A little bit about me. You heard a little bit about it in my introduction. I've been kind of all over the map in my career, and I'm somebody who doesn't like to let a lot of grass grow under my feet. So I'm 3 weeks into a new job. I'm 8 years out of my previous previous one, and I'm here today kind of double billed as the former president of Venture Lab, which is a nonprofit tech accelerator that serves a pretty large catchment area in sort of central Ontario, including this part of the world. And that's been a great deal of fun and a big part of my life passion. So you heard in the beginning, I'm an entrepreneur. I built a couple of companies. A couple of them worked really well. One of them was a spectacular failure. I learned more in the failure than I ever did in the two that worked. So there's something about cruise control. When everything's working really, really well, you tend to be blinded by all of the other things, but you are acutely aware when things start to go wrong. And it's an interesting thing about the Canadian psyche and building technology companies in Canada. We tend to not celebrate failures quite the same way our technology counterparts in other parts of the world do. It's an important part of the learning process. And so what drew me to do something like I've been doing for the last number of years at Venture Lab was really about that. It was informed by that. So I built my first company, as you heard, in Kingston at a time when this kind of inclusiveness didn't exist. Honestly, Roy and I have talked about this. I would have given my eye teeth to have this kind of community engagement, this kind of inclusive community engagement at the time that I was getting started. I was in my early 20s. I did not know what I was doing. And I kind of stumbled and found my way through it. But I was in a small community. I was in Kingston. I was in Eastern Ontario. And the long and the short of what happened for me was essentially, as things started to work, I raised all of my money, and most of my sort of mentorship came from outside of Canada. And we were fortunate, very lucky, that we grew a business successfully. And when it was all said and done, the intellectual property and jobs went to Copenhagen, to Denmark, so overseas. And the vast majority of the shareholder wealth went to some other place other than Canada. It largely went to the Valley. So that's a bit of a sin. And I always found it ironic at that time that I was being paraded around by the Ontario government as this, what they called at that time, a global exporter. And I would get up on stages like this. I was like 24 years old, and I would talk about my story at that particular time in present tense. And what would occur to me was that I'm being celebrated as somebody who doesn't have a single Canadian customer. I've invented something, been successful in getting it funded. We've actually authored a patent. But I don't have a single Canadian customer. Nobody in Canada is buying my stuff. And a theme throughout this talk this morning will come back to this. So there we were with a very significant culture issue. We had a provincial government parading me around, celebrating the fact that we were building a globally relevant export company, which is obviously vitally important to the Canadian economy. It's all about new loonies. It's all about new dollars into the marketplace when you are building an export-ready business. But to not have an opportunity to even trial or ultimately find that all-important first customer in my own backyard made it very, very difficult to build and scale a successful business in Canada. So that's a big part of my passion and my life's work. By accident, I'll say. But when I found my way to running a technology accelerator called Venture Lab, that's really what motivated me to do it. Could we build a more inclusive community? Could we do it under the guise of a nonprofit structure so that we're truly unbiased and that we work with entrepreneurs to try and help them scale and grow and get access, be it to a first customer, a strategic partner, or capital at home, so that they can be successful at home perhaps before they go abroad. And I think that's really important. I'm also a drummer. That's maybe interesting, maybe it isn't, I don't know. I try to mix in a couple of things that are both personal and professional. God bless my mom and dad for letting me be a drummer at 13 years of age, my goodness. They both can still hear. I got to hang out with my friends and build a really interesting sort of community. And for those who are music fans, you know the Tragically Hip comes from my town. It was pretty fun to be a musician in the late 80s and the early 90s in Kingston. So that's something that I'm passionate about. You heard me say I've authored some patents. I was successful going down that path. That was interesting. I was a young buckaroo. I do not have a science background. My partner did. And so we were able to do this successfully, and that was the foundation of my entrepreneurial journey. I'm a husband. That's important. That's the number one most important thing. My wife, Catherine, and I have lots of fun traveling around and doing the things that we do in the Ontario innovation ecosystem because of what I now get the privilege of doing with the Ontario Centres of Excellence. What else? I consider myself a civic leader. That's why stuff like this is so important to me and why I was so honored to be able to be a part of this summit this morning with all of you guys. I think that civic leadership and your contribution to society and in your local community is of the utmost importance. When I was 24 in Kingston, these rooms didn't exist. That's only 20 odd years ago. So you can imagine how lonely the journey is when you're a single 24-year-old trying to figure out how you're going to scale and grow a business and the community doesn't rally around you. OCE, just to knock them for a minute, was in my town. They had a business development manager in the Queen's Partech office the entire time that New Day was scaling and growing. Kingston at that time was a community of 80,000 people. So when I think about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that I left on the table as a result of not even knowing about OCE. So when you talk about community engagement, this is really at the crux of the entire matter. That would have helped me enormously. I would have given up less equity. I would have had more ownership, and it would have completely changed the path that my organization went on in terms of raising capital outside of the country and finding customers outside of the country. This is really important stuff, folks. I'm a brother, my sister, and my two nephews are a big central part of my life, and I am, as I hope you can now know before we get into this, proudly Canadian. So you heard in my intro, I've spoken, I've been a part of TEDx summits. This one is my most important one. This was about impact on my life as an entrepreneur. So everybody who spoke at this particular TED conference was using the word impact as it related to something transformational in their life. So I chose to use it around my story as an entrepreneur. The link is there if anybody is so inclined. It's still available on Google. I speak pretty regularly. Am I doing that or is someone else doing that? Do you all see that or am I the only one? Okay, good, okay. That was terrifying. It's like when you're told when you smell burning toast. Okay, so the lights are going on and off. This is important to me. I've got just enough gray hair to talk about social media, and this, folks, is a social network. This room we're in. This is something that I didn't set out by design to start being quoted about. It just kind of happened as I was out talking. I am a big believer in looking into the whites of people's eyes and understanding people's challenges and not doing it with your head buried in your phone and not doing it through Twitter and Facebook, but actually using those tools to serve you rather than the other way around. Who is actually running the race, and it's people that actually make the difference. So I'm a bit of a fossil in that I get quoted sometimes for saying that people trump technology. So for today's discussion, to try and frame what we're going to talk about today, I've got 4 points. So we're going to talk a little bit about the state of healthcare manufacturing in Canada, how we stack up as Canadians. I've picked a couple of markets to just show you and share with you examples. I thought that would be important so that you don't think this is just a bunch of fluff. We're going to point to people who are actually doing it. Hopefully that gives you some inspiration to think about the art of the possible. And how to impact positive change. We'll close off there. So how do you get, I don't know if you can see that really well, from this to this. So I know the fella who's responsible for that medical device over there on that side of the slide. What's happening over here is a live transplant situation. And so here's a market opportunity where somebody in need of a transplant and somebody who is an organ donor need to be able to get together really quickly. This is well understood by the hospital market. This is a device that helps extend the useful life of the organ so that greater distances can be bridged in order to make the donor situation happen. This is a phenomenal innovation. This came from looking at a live heart and a patient on an OR bed waiting for it and figuring out that a device could be developed to bridge that gap and make it better. This is about social innovation as much as anything. This is about how you impact lives and try and create betterment within society. The person behind this is in this deck as we go on, and I'll reveal that at the end. So why is it all so darn confusing? Anybody working in the health and wellness space today? Over here. So I've come to know, we were talking a bit about this at the outset, I've come to know professionals in the healthcare space, hospital CEOs, clinicians, and staff. That's only as a result of my work at the accelerator at Venture Lab. Prior to that, I had no experience. Mine was entirely on the private sector side. So I'm somebody who has something that can fix or make the world better. Why don't you want to buy it? It's so obvious to me that you should. And unfortunately, the ecosystem, things like procurement, get in the middle of all of that, and they create a very confusing and complicated ecosystem. So what we're really trying to do as civic engaged citizens, all working in this space for one common purpose, is to make it less confusing. So here's something to take note of. I'm wondering how many people might find this a revelation. So this is current. So the current healthcare market in Canada is $6.2 billion as of 2017. It's projected to grow to approximately $8.6 billion in 2020. Now, I apologize if that's a little small, but the deck's available if anybody would like to have a copy of it afterwards. I picked Mexico and China. So this comes from Emergo. So the source is quoted at the bottom if anybody wants to have a look. This is a great industry website around the healthcare space where you can get all kinds of really interesting market information if you're so inclined. But this one, I just wanted to put together a quick snapshot. So we think about Canada as being a small market. We are often told, in fact, we're told all the time, that you have to build an export-ready business, that there is no actual addressable market in the domestic market space because Canada is so small. So we're a country of 35 million, Mexico 121 million, and China 1.4 billion. But when you start to look at some comparative stats, a couple of things pop out. Healthcare expenditures as a percentage of total GDP, that's pretty fascinating when you think about how small Canada is relevant to those other two markets. Expenditures in healthcare, just up from the bottom. So we're in a public market here. We mostly know. It's largely a single payer system. Entrepreneurs are aware of this. But if you really break it out, today it's about 71% government, 29% private. It is projected that in the next 10 years, the private percentage will increase. And some predict it could increase exponentially. And we could be living in a Canada where we have a public-private model. And for entrepreneurs and innovators, I think this is a pretty fascinating opportunity. This isn't meant to scare anybody. It's actually not meant to be provocative at all. The healthy tension that comes from a marketplace like that could actually be a phenomenal thing because our counterparts in the US don't have this. Their pendulum is entirely in the other direction. And so oftentimes entrepreneurs who find their way into accelerators like Venture Lab think that the Holy Grail is actually in the United States. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I mean, I think we have to be careful about gross generalizations in any market, but I would argue that when you've got a public-private marketplace and some arguments to suggest that the private side is going to grow, you've got a very interesting opportunity to build a healthcare innovation in Canada and do really well in Canada, unlike my story, where you actually have a homegrown marketplace where you can substantiate your product, get it into the market, have some success at home before you go abroad. Size of the medical device market, so as I said in the previous slide, it's $6.2 billion. Look at it in Mexico. So we've got a country of 122 million people in Mexico. The market's smaller. All kinds of interesting insights you could take from that, but I think just to keep your attention drawn on the Canadian marketplace, it's a $6.2 billion market in 2017 here. And then number of hospital beds, so that's just an indicator of sorts to give you a sense again of the market opportunity depending on the innovation that you might be in. This is another great thing. Every entrepreneur I talk to who's had success in the manufacturing space, regardless of whether or not it's healthcare, talks about this. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples further on in my talk about why this is so meaningful. So here is something that Canada is doing and has been doing for a long time. So while I had never heard of OCE, shame on the Dan Ruby, that's my friend right there, Dan Ruby, who is with OCE. So if you want to talk about OCE later and you can't find me, Dan's a great resource to talk to. The Dan Ruby in Kingston in 1995. So just to be clear, it wasn't Dan Ruby, right? It was a guy like Dan Ruby who didn't take the time to find me. This was transformational for my company, New Day. And in the manufacturing space, when 70% of your eligible costs are what we call shreddable, this is a big reason why you want to manufacture at home. This is an advantage to being able to manufacture at home, and this exists as well today as it did 25 years ago. I brought a couple of examples because I know them both. Some of you, would be great if some of you did. This is out of the recent biotechnology focus, but speaking to this very issue right here, and to give you a sense that this is real, this isn't vaporware. Canadian companies, two based in Ontario, were among the top 20 life sciences companies to watch in 2018, according to PwC's Money Tree. So they reported and headlined health tech as a sector primed for growth in 2018. An Ottawa company, eSight. eSight, anyone heard of eSight? This is a medical device for macular degeneration. eSight, to give credit to OCE and well-deserved credit, eSight was a research initiative by a well-known doctor at Carleton University in and around 2009. OCE granted a $100,000 grant to try and figure out if they could get this innovation off the lab bench and into something of a crude prototype. Fast forward to 2018, and eSight is one of these companies to watch. OCE has been enormously proud of eSight over this last 10 years that they've watched this journey. So eSight is now a product in market for macular degeneration. The other one that they know, Toronto-based technology firm Synaptive Medical. So Synaptive is well known to Venture Labs. So I purposely thought this was really cool. One that's really well known to OCE and another one that's really well known to Venture Labs. Synaptive Medical enables doctors to perform complex brain and spinal surgery that were previously thought impossible. Both of these companies are examples of innovations that are happening in the Canadian marketplace, in fact, in the Ontario marketplace, and they're doing it, and they're having success doing it for the reasons that I'm talking about this morning. So we don't want this. That's heads, tails, right? We don't want the decisions made this way. This is what we're actually trying to create, right? A commercially viable medical device. And the point of this discussion and the point of this summit today is how you get from not wanting that to actually arriving here, and to hopefully make it very, very clear before I'm finished this morning that this is imminently possible. Technology readiness levels. So any good accelerator worth its salt will take entrepreneurs on this particular journey. I apologize, that's a little hard to read, but again, this is stuff you can check out on your own on Google. You can take a copy of this if you'd like. So TRL1, Technology Readiness Level 1, and then it goes all the way up to 9. But what this is talking about on this slide is where it starts to get interesting for entrepreneurs and investors alike. So how you get to something that looks like this is by starting to get real serious about the investment path at TRL6. So that's technology demonstrated in a relevant environment. Now, as I said earlier, that's impossible to do without a community leaning in together to help entrepreneurs and innovators do that. TRL6 is not possible if that doesn't happen. And that's why innovators go somewhere other than Canada, because there isn't a receptive audience to be able to do that. That's what happened to me. So you can't raise capital until you get there. 7 is system demonstrated in an operational environment. 8, system complete and qualified through test and demonstration. Look at, Taylor? I hate to put it on you, pal, but that's the way it's got to be. Okay, that's what we're trying to show. So think about what's involved, the money involved, the time, the energy, the regulatory path that's involved in that as you're going along this path. 8, system complete and qualified through test and demonstration. So that device there on this side has a live heart or a live liver in it. Am I making my point? And then 9 is market launch. Okay, so Steve Blank, who's widely recognized out of the Valley for being the author of the lead canvas, he talks about investment ready levels. That's Steve Blank. Anyone know Steve Blank? Heard of him? Dan Ruby has. Dan reports to me, it's good he says that. Good job, Dan. Okay, so investment ready levels. This actually lines up with this. Okay, they correlate. That's why I put them together. So Steve Blank talks about, for any sector, agnostic of sector, how you create investment readiness levels. And investment readiness levels follow the same kind of path. It's from 6 to 9, where investors, be it institutional or angels, start to get excited about an innovation. So 6, if you can't read it, validate the right side of the canvas. So what the heck is that? That's this thing. So this is Steve Blank's innovation, and it's called the business model canvas. So the right side of the canvas, for those who can't quite see it, and again, you can Google this, customer relationships, channels, customer segments, and revenue streams. These need to be articulated before you can raise any money. And they also have to be completely aligned with the technology readiness levels. So think about how daunting a challenge that is if you're doing it in isolation of any kind of mentorship, support, or community engagement. And from 6 to 9, so at 9, we get to validate metrics that matter. So 6 to 9 on the investment readiness scale is how you get a device or an innovation of any kind ultimately to market. And this is a very, very good tool. Now, left side of the canvas comes up at 8. So that's key partners, key activities, key resources, cost structures. They're actually sitting on the left side of the canvas. So the investor's mindset is they want to know everything on the right side. What we find over and over and over again is that entrepreneurs want to spend their time on the left side. It's not their fault. It's like anything. If I'm not taught, how am I supposed to know any better? If I've found a channel partner, well, that's all sitting on the left side of the canvas. The thing that needs to happen prior to that is everything on the right side. This is really, really important. And when you take entrepreneurs and innovators on a journey through the entire business model canvas, all kinds of insights come out of it. There's lots of different ways this is taught. Sometimes they put people in a room like this and they force them to do it in rapid fire. So like do the whole thing in 10 minutes. And then step away from it and look at what you wrote down when you were forced to populate it really quickly. Others will take you on a 1-month sort of course curriculum style program to take you through it. But the lean canvas is a really important part of understanding how you get a product to market. So what are the 3 secrets to building a successful medical device? In my humble opinion, in sort of 8 years of being around the med tech sector, to me, it's about requirements, requirements, requirements. So that's the entire thing. It's about that and that alone. What are the 2 most valuable assets to develop in your med tech company? Deep and profound knowledge of your customer's pain and leadership skills for capital efficient networked teams. For those of you who haven't met the guys from Shield Care who are in the back of the room this morning and are Venture Lab clients and have their device outside in the lobby, go talk to those 2 fellas about this. Don't hear it from me, hear it from the real deal. This is what it's all about. When to build internal capacity and when to outsource. I think the guys from Shield Care could tell you about this as well. This is my thesis. So there are 3 types of knowledge capacity. There is core knowledge, specialized knowledge, and generic knowledge. So one might suggest that a great opportunity to outsource a manufacturing process could perhaps fall into the generic knowledge part of the business. How do you maintain intellectual capacity? How do you maintain your unique value proposition? How do you protect the assets of the business? That's the concept of building internal capacity, those things that you want to keep closely guarded and inside the shop, versus the things that might actually help you scale and grow by somehow outsourcing. So that's back to the partnership model, working in the advanced manufacturing sector to help you get your device to market. So, examples of it in Canada. Anyone heard of either of these companies? Good. That's good to hear. So, South Medic's just down the road. South Medic's in Barrie. Lee McDonald's company employs a little over 200 people. This is an advanced manufacturing medical device company. They are building and manufacturing products in Barrie for the medical device industry and selling them globally. When we founded Venture Lab, the two founders of Baylis Medical, its namesake, Frank Baylis, who's now a federal minister in the Trudeau cabinet, and his partner, Chris Shaw, who was a first-serving director in Venture Lab, greatly informed the processes that Venture Lab would ultimately use and how it designed products and services for the medical device space. These guys built Baylis Medical, which is now the fourth largest homegrown medical device company in the country. It's in Mississauga, Ontario. They employ a little over 300 people. They have never taken institutional money. So throw all that Steve Blank stuff out the window. Never took a dime of venture capital money. They built the entire business on SHRED credits and IRAP. So I talked about SHRED earlier. This is an example of how possible it is. This is a fully set up medical device facility, clean white rooms behind glass, people all draped out, making stuff. It is an absolute pure proof positive example of the fact that it can be done in Canada. If you talk to Frank Baylis or Chris Shaw, they will say the biggest problem is we're the only one. You can't build a cluster like Silicon Valley or Research Triangle Park in Raleigh-Durham if you're the only trailblazer. The first one through the wall gets bloody. So they've done it, folks. They founded the thing in 1992. It is a successful economic engine of the local economy and the national economy. But to hear their stories and how they actually did it are absolutely invaluable. Not only are they inspirational, they are invaluable in understanding how it can be done. If you ask them, sadly, because you're all here about your community, what did Peel Region do for them? They'll tell you that. Just like my story in Kingston. So in spite of it, it happened. That sucks. And everybody who cares about their community the way everyone in this room does ought to sit up and take note of that. You ought to treat that as serious as a heart attack. That is important stuff, people, because that doesn't inspire people to build clusters. So if I'm thinking about building a device company and I hear that story from these guys, why on earth do I want to go to Mississauga and build a company alongside Baylis? I might as well go to the Valley or Boston, somewhere where an actual cluster actually exists. When communities lean in, if you take anything away from my talk this morning, please don't underestimate the importance and the value of communities leaning in to help innovators and entrepreneurs build scale-up companies. Anybody heard of Tom Peters? Good. A couple people. I've seen Tom speak a couple of times. He's really great. Highly recommend you Google him. This is one of his slides, and it's really cool. When you see Tom speak, he says, "Shamelessly steal myself because you all become my marketing and sales team when you do." So here I am today being a part of Tom Peters' marketing and sales team. So what do you have to make all this stuff we've been talking about this morning work? You got to have a chief hurdle removal officer in your organization. I think that's Eugene. One of you at GeoCare is. I'm not sure which one is the CHRO, but I know one of you is, or maybe you both are. So Tom says you got to have a chief hurdle removal officer. I showed you that device at the outset. Anyone heard of Starfish Medical? Wouldn't be surprised if you hadn't, but it is somebody after today you want to know about, because if you want to replicate a model here in Midland, this would be a good one to take a look at. My friend, a gentleman named Lahav Gill, who built a company in Toronto called Kangaroo Design and Innovations, is the creator of that device I showed you for the transplant market at the beginning of my talk. Lahav was able to successfully exit his company to these guys. So this fella here started this company in Vancouver. Through his acquisition of Kangaroo Design and Innovations, he now has a footprint in Toronto. This is one example, only meant to be one example for somebody who might be sitting in this room today going, I've got an idea up here. How the heck do I get it from up here to a device that sits on a table that I can get through all those TRL thingamadoogies that you told me about, Jeremy? These kinds of companies can help. This is an opportunity where you can take the stuff that doesn't need to be inside your organization and can be outsourced to organizations like this that can take you through the regulatory compliance hurdles that are all necessary in building a medical device. Starfish is a great example of a Canadian outsourced manufacturing business that actually helps folks in the contract manufacturing space within the medical device market do their stuff. So before you get to $1 million run rate and you're just trying to get a couple thousand out the door, companies like this are invaluable. How to impact positive change. It's important that I don't get out of here this morning without a plug about my current employer, or I would be in trouble. At least I would be remiss. So I'm going to give you 2 examples, both relevant to why I'm here today. So I'm double billed. What Sharon said to me is, can we share some of the stories that Venture Lab was able to do in creating this inclusive marketplace that exists in York Region around public and private partnerships. That's what this thing over here called the Health Ecosphere is all about. This is something that was just an idea inside our tech accelerator that was informed by hospital CEOs, it was informed by municipality leaders, it was informed by private sector, both startup and big guys, all coming together saying, here's our challenges, here's why it doesn't happen today. So we learned about procurement, we learned about how hard it is for a hospital to bring a product and innovation in. We got to this concept and this idea of a sphere. And the idea was that if you look at a hospital as the end user customer only and not somebody that's involved in the overall value chain, you will greatly, greatly limit the ultimate success of this idea. If instead you think of us as an innovation partner and around we go, we are working in something we call a sphere, an ecosphere. And the idea being, as you take an early product, think about the TRL stuff we were talking about earlier. So you're not at 6 yet, you're at somewhere between 1 and 5. And you get to sit down with a clinician or a staff member inside a hospital, and they tell you then that the product doesn't need to move like this. If you could make it so that it moved like this, I'd buy thousands of them from you. The problem today is this chasm that exists between entrepreneurs and innovators and the institutional marketplace that they seek to sell to. There's no crosstalk, there's no communication. So how much more valuable is it before you talk to an investor, before you go and prototype your product, if you could get that valuable insight? And what does that cost the institution? Nothing. It's just a matter of sitting down together. The other problem is they don't want 300 people calling them every day. They don't have a facility to be even able to take those phone calls. So I can't have a tsunami wave of innovators coming at me telling me their stuff is the best thing since sliced bread and you need to buy it. It's going to fix all your problems. That's what we entrepreneurs do. No is our second favorite answer. We're always shopping for a yes and we hate maybes. That's the rule. So how do we fix this? And we sat there and said, well, we're a nonprofit tech accelerator. We have no commercial interest in any of this stuff. Maybe we could be the Switzerland. That would mean we would have to develop deep domain expertise on one side and deep domain expertise on the other side. And if we could become the eHarmony that sat in the middle and only brought qualified deal flow into the ecosphere, we might have an innovation opportunity here where we could actually see homegrown success stories make its way into the medical device space or the health and wellness space locally. Help those entrepreneurs find that first customer. Does it work? Sometimes. Is it perfect? Hell no. Hell no. But it's better than what we had. It's way better than what we had. It's a start. Crawl, walk, run. So that was about 2012. Fast forward to last year, FedDev puts $35 million into the health ecosphere. They anchor it in York Region. Cisco, TELUS come to the table and co-invest. And Venture Lab, with York University, Seneca College, and a whole slew of others, so academic partners, public partners, private partners, and entrepreneurs and innovators, all come together to make this thing a reality. We put some gas in the tank so that we can actually fund projects. We set a KPI of 10 projects. Could we find 10 meaningful projects that would find their way into the hospital stream if this worked? We closed with 28. FedDev's at the table to do a third one. So this is real, folks. There's capital out there to help make this happen. This is a living example. Okay, this is not vapor. This is a real thing. $35 million to make it happen here at home. On the OCE side, we have something called the Health Technologies Fund. This is non-dilutive capital for innovators and entrepreneurs. Now imagine if you're an innovator and an entrepreneur and you were to leverage both of those things because maybe the proximity of it worked. Maybe you were in this region, so you were part of Venture Labs catchment area and you didn't even know you were. And you could use OCE's money, and Dan will help you find out why, because I'm 3 weeks in and don't have a clue. But I know it's there. We got the money. If you had that money, and I'll tell you in all seriousness, 15% of every project OCE funded last year came from Venture Lab. That's an inclusive community. If I think about the pain I went through in 1997 in Kingston, and that BD who didn't bother to find me, I could retire before I figured it all out. That's why this is so damn important that you have civic engagement. This is on every one of us if we care. If we're passionate about it, it's on every single one of us. The entrepreneurs who have used the HTF and have leveraged a project, one of those 28, I know it's small, but one of those 28 is the next Bayless, is the next South Medic, and could be the starting of a cluster. That's why it's so important. One last one from Tom Peters. Ready, fire, aim. After spending an evening with Roy, I would believe this is his mantra. As my grandpa taught me, I listened last night more than I spoke. Anyone spent an evening with Roy understands that. I listened more than I spoke, and I learned to ready, fire, aim. Do it. Make it happen. Action counts. No one ever sat their way to success. No one. That's why I'm standing. That's why I give a damn. That's why we're all here in this room. Ready, fire, aim. Do it. I've given you 20 minutes of examples that are real. This is an amazing opportunity and an amazing community, and I am honored to have been here. Thank you.
So fast.
Okay.
So you actually saw this picturesque view last evening at the boathouse.
Yes,
so here's a small token of our appreciation, and we hope you'll hang this proudly somewhere.
I'll put it in my office at OCE.
I love it. I love it. And secondly, this will show you the character of the man I'm standing beside. Jeremy receives a small stipend. And Jeremy wants us to give that to local charities. So thank you again. We really appreciate everything you do, okay? And what we're going to do right now is move this along. Brent Graham is our healthcare ambassador, as I mentioned before, and he has a panel of 5 local folks to talk to us about healthcare, what they do. Brent, without further ado, we'll bring Brent up on stage with the panel of 5, please. Thank you.
As Roy said, I am the healthcare ambassador for EDCNS, and it's my pleasure to facilitate the healthcare section of the agenda for today. These are the 5 organizations that you'll be hearing from. They have some fantastic presentations, really important stuff about healthcare, and probably somewhat surprising how much is going on in the healthcare space in North Simcoe. But before I introduce them, and I'll get to that in a minute, I wanted to present 4 slides just to give some context to healthcare, a bit of local information, a bit of Ontario information, and then a somewhat provocative slide as well, but really just to set up today's discussion, because it's really all about kind of understanding where we're at, where we could go, and start thinking about some of the innovation, as Jeremy talked about, that could be produced in North Simcoe. So not surprising, really, and a pretty simple fact, when you look at demographics, and this is from the 2016 census, you can see that North Simcoe's demographics for 60-year-olds and above is about 10 points higher than Ontario or Canada. So in demographic terms, that's pretty significant. That's like a 33, 34% of the population is over that age. So that's kind of enlightening and pretty powerful, because when you think about planning for healthcare and all kinds of things in North Simcoe, you think about the kind of things that we'll have to do to facilitate and care and support for those patients or that part of the population. You can also see that the rate is much different in North Simcoe than Ontario and Canada. So I don't know, but it makes me think about speculating. Maybe we need to solve some of the problems of looking after that demographic more quickly than Ontario. Maybe we should think about lobbying the Ontario government to do pilot programs here, so we're starting to figure out how to manage these types of patient or citizen issues with the older demographic than they are, and maybe let them learn from us a little bit and kind of partner in that way. So I'm just throwing out ideas. That's pretty much what I'm going to do with these slides. So what could accelerate the focus on this older demographic in North Simcoe? Now, this isn't North Simcoe data, this is Ontario data, and I'll just go through the slide a bit, how it's set up. So you can see each column is an age cohort, and at the right-hand side, you see 65 and over. And then you can see the percentage of that age cohort, the top 1%, on average costs us $83,000 a year to treat or look after patients in that age cohort. So you can see the 5%, 10%, and the median, and you can look at other age groups. But when you think about what I just showed you about demographics and the costs related to those demographics, you can see that we're all going to be pretty focused on figuring out better ways to deliver healthcare. So I think what Jeremy was saying as well, you add this to it, and there's going to be a real emphasis and need for private funding, community care, cheaper ways of doing things, better ways of doing things. So it's a good time to be focused on this area as an entrepreneur or a business person if you can come up with some of those future solutions. So I just wanted to layer on some additional facts because that was kind of gross level data, was just looking at age cohorts. But here's some facts about what we need to do better as we look after seniors in the future. You think about the Canadian population, we're expecting to create an increase of about 40% in cancer patients or cases by 2030. That's pretty significant. That's going to be 277,000 new cancer patients every year by 2030. So obviously that's a big change and a big impact on healthcare. Those are high-cost patients, serious concern. It affects families, caregivers. And when you think on top of this, it doesn't have this point on the slide, but when you think cancer patients are starting to live longer, now you're going to have longer time with patients to look after them. They're going to get into comorbidities that they didn't have before when they weren't surviving as long. So there's going to be a real focus and need to think about ways to look after those patients. Also, I wanted to include some interesting information in the mental health space. So if you look at dementia, it's expected to rise 66% over the next 15 years in terms of incidence. And the risk of dementia doubles every 5 years from 65 on. So again, you layer that on to the population we're looking at in North Simcoe, that's a pretty impactful number. And by 2041, the experts are predicting seniors will have the highest rate of mental illness in the country. And obviously we have some panelists focus on that space, so it'll be really interesting for you to hear what they have to say today as well. And then the last point I kind of grabbed just of interest, because it's kind of off of the patient-specific focus, is nearly 3 in 10 Canadians today are family caregivers, looking after seniors, helping them through the process, helping them through their illnesses. And you can see that the prediction is that will double in the next 30 years. And I think for people in the healthcare space, they realize there's already a thing called caregiver exhaustion or burnout. It's just becoming very difficult for caregivers to spend the time working, their own families, and looking after seniors as well. We do it. We all do it because we love them. But if you can think of ways that that could be supported too, how can we help those people? How can we nurture them as a component of the healthcare system, really an important component? I think that's worth consideration too. Keeping people in the community is probably one of the best things we can do from a cost and satisfaction perspective. I didn't mention it when I showed the slide on costs, but in the over 65 column, one of the biggest drivers of those high costs was institutional care. So that was a big component of the drivers in that particular slide. And then this is the more provocative slide. You can see this is a place called The Village. It's a private memory care community in Langley, BC. I chose it because it's Canadian. It's being built on the basis of where an old high school existed, and it's going to support 75 dementia patients living in this community. And it's being designed and built specifically for patients with dementia. Now, there's other examples outside of Canada where this is further along. This facility is supposed to be opened in mid-2019. I'm not here to tell you we should do this. I don't know if it's the right thing for us, but I think it's provocative to think at a higher level a community has thought about how to help these patients and how to support them. You're going to hear a lot about our institutions, products, those kind of things, which are all very important as well from our panelists. But I think we have to think as a community what kind of things we might consider too. Maybe not this, maybe something else, but it's probably something to keep an eye on and see how it goes once it's actually open and running in 2019. So now I am, as promised, going to introduce our panelists today. So we're fortunate that we have this group of experts to talk to us about healthcare and their experience in the healthcare sector. We've got Gail Hunt, who is the president and CEO of Georgian Bay General Hospital. I know already Gail is a great collaborator. She's very supportive with these kind of things and has really dug in to help us with today as well. And I can't think of a better person to take us through some of the information about the hospital that we may not be aware of. It's not intuitive. So I think it's important we understand that institution. It's such a critical institution in our community. I know when I met with David Jarlett, who I'll introduce in a minute, I asked him what was one of the key things for him in his business in the community. He's got a senior care business, and he did say the hospital. That's a critical component of what he looks for in a community for his business. So it really is that kind of cornerstone institution. And then beside Gail, we have Sean DeRoche, who's the Senior VP of Frankie Kindred. Great story of innovation right here in Canada. Frankie Kindred's a global company, but the Canadian organization took on innovation within the healthcare sector, and they're leading the charge with the product they've come up with. Don't want to steal Sean's thunder, but he's going to talk about that in his presentation. Then we've got Sean Bishop from Waypoint Center for Mental Healthcare, and Sean is going to talk to us about Waypoint as well. I think it's fantastic that we have Waypoint in this community. There's only 3 mental health hospitals in the whole province, and we happen to have one in North Simcoe. We all know mental health is a big, big issue these days. It's getting more airtime, and it's getting talked about. People are not stigmatizing it the way they used to, and Waypoint's at the center of those discussions. One thing just to comment on that I'm so impressed with at Waypoint is how well they've integrated themselves into the community. I often thought when I first met with Sean, he was just going to talk about patient care and that was it, it ended there, but they're involved in employment processes, food processes, getting the right food to their clientele, accommodation, working with the police to make sure they can reduce the need for police involvement, and they're just integrated so extremely well into the community, and that benefits all of us. And then David Jarlett's going to talk to us about his business. I don't think people really think of Jarlett as the Villa. The Villa is the facility in Midland, but it is the organizational name, Jarlett Healthcare Services. And David's going to talk to us about a really important perspective on the future of looking after seniors. And I know David's organization has really taken charge in terms of looking at that future and where the opportunities are and making the investments to make that happen. So we'll really look forward to hear that presentation. And then Mark Canick's going to follow up. He has an organization called Ambient Activity Technologies, as well as Kiwi. I think he runs Kiwi on his sideline now, but he managed to manage both of those organizations, which is no mean feat. And he's going to talk to us about his innovations in the dementia space. Mark's really got a great story of reinventing his organization in a way, at least that's the way I think of it. And it's kind of phenomenal to listen to really think about what your capabilities are and how you can apply them to very different customers. So with that being said, I will turn things over to Gail. The advancer is right here.
Thank you very much, Brent. Thank you for having me here today. I think you set the bar a little high by calling me an expert in healthcare. I don't think that's possible, so hopefully I don't disappoint you with my lack of knowledge. So just a couple of quick facts about Georgian Bay General Hospital, or GBGH as I'll refer to it. We have seen a lot of growth in the last few years in our hospital. So you'll see here that just year over year, we've had a 9% increase in our inpatient days. We have over 39,000 visits, or inpatient days, I should say. And probably one of the biggest things you'll notice is our emerge visits are over 46,000 visits a year, which for this size of community is a large number of visits. And probably the reason why we're doing so much construction. Our facility was originally built in the mid-70s and was meant to flow through about 17,000 visits a year. So now we're at 46,000. So this is a reason that we're doing our redevelopment, which should be done this fall and open. So we have 105 beds in our hospital. We have over 750 staff, 185 volunteers, and 127 credential staff, or physician, midwives, nurse practitioners. One of the things I think the biggest thing you'll notice from the private sector to public sector is how it takes so much employees to run such an organization, and a lot of it's due to the complicated nature of healthcare, being that it is. So what do our patients value most? When you come in our doors, you want to trust that we're giving you safe, quality care, that you're going to be taken care of. These are the things that our patients are concerned about when they walk through our doors. That the emergency department is there when you need it, and it has the things you need, the staff who are qualified to work there. You want respectful, compassionate, and knowledgeable care teams. And you expect the same level of service you would get at any hospital. So we also obviously have a large seasonal population, so GBGH is also their hospital away from home. And we also have to be inclusive of the language and culture of our Francophone and our First Nation and Métis Inuit cultures. And then also, as you know, this community is very passionate about their hospital. You saw that when there was a recommendation several years ago about closing down obstetrics in this community, and the community fought against that. So that led to some great innovations in the hospital. So barriers to growth. So anybody who has done any work with a hospital knows that we are slow. Trying to work with us can be frustrating. The public sector is very bureaucratic, and we are highly regulated, as Jeremy mentioned. There's lots of regulations, so it's very difficult for us to be flexible and adaptable in any quick way. We do have scarce resources, both human and financial, so we really there's a lack of time to proactively consider opportunities for innovation. We see things, we want to do them, but we don't have the expertise in-house or the resources to sort of make those things happen. And we have the challenges of old infrastructure. I mentioned that the hospital was built in the mid-70s, and there's nothing simple about an installation of new technology. You're dealing with asbestos in the building, you're dealing with wiring that so difficult to put through, and you're also dealing with, hoarding has to be done if we're opening up anything that generates dust or anything else. So it makes it very difficult, it makes it very expensive. And there's also lots of regulations that you think one simple change in a room, but unfortunately it triggers a lot of other things that have to be done in a complete renovation of a space that you did not intend that expense to occur. So it does make it difficult. And it's difficult to move to those new technologies that are mostly Wi-Fi generated and things, and we have very old, dated infrastructure. So it makes the transition difficult. And of course, infection prevention and control standards. I mentioned the hoarding that's required if we do anything that causes dust or anything else. Infection prevention is only growing in regulations, and it makes it very difficult for us to, expense-wise, to do these things, and it makes it complicated for manufacturers and constructions that come into hospitals to sort of adjust to the way you do things everywhere else and the way you have to do things in a healthcare setting. So the challenge, because of these challenges, it's difficult for us to link directly with manufacturers. I think Jeremy had mentioned with regulations, there's the broader Public Sector Accountability Act, which requires us to tender everything. We can't make direct relationships just because somebody is local. So it's taken away a lot of our flexibility to be innovative and trial a partnership and things like that. So there's tendering process for everything, and sometimes we spend more money tendering than we actually do on the project. So that can be frustrating, and that can sort of stop us from moving forward a lot. And then I guess lastly, I turned it off, or did I? And also a thing is that CEOs are not usually allowed to touch items because we lack technical expertise. I could talk to you about my last item, so I don't want to give Roy any more anxiety about being off schedule. So I share your anxiety, Roy. I like being on schedule too. So the last thing would be opportunities for innovation. So I think the biggest opportunities for us is that if the easier you can make it for us to participate in an innovative initiative with you, the more likely that we're going to be able to make that happen. Because I stated we don't have the internal resources to do a lot of things that we want to, the more you can do to bring something in, the easier it will be, and the more likely we are to agree to do something because we know that we're not going to have to do the work per se. So some of the things that we are doing, we are actually working with Kiwi Play, putting in a children's play area in our emergency department. As you know, due to infection control, there's a lot of resistance to having anything that people are going to be touching on a regular basis, but Kiwi Play sort of produces those things that can be easily meet our standards for infection control. And any of you who've actually sat and emerged with several small children would just love to have somewhere to keep them busy. Patient flow is a big obstacle that we face, and something that is an opportunity for innovation. As you saw in the recent surge, that was surge in hospital beds that you would see on the news quite often in the recent months, that's really due to our inability to discharge patients safely to home. So there's lots of opportunities there for getting patients safely home, and also because, as Brent talked about, the increase in mental health issues, we also have obstacles in keeping patients safe even within our facility. We have patients wandering more, we have patients falling more because they don't remember they're not supposed to get up and ambulate by themselves. So you have all those obstacles, and we can't watch them one-on-one. So how do we keep them safe without restriction? We can't restrain people, but we have to provide the safe environment for them. So those are opportunities. An improved patient experience. Communication to our patients is something that improves the experience, and is something we're moving to, bedside rounding, things like that. And so also when people go home, when you're leaving the hospital, all you're thinking about is getting out of the place, and you're not listening to anything the physician or the nurses are telling you as you're walking out the door. And then when you get home and you look at the pile of medications on the counter or the other instructions and think, what did they say to me? I don't remember anything. So we're trying to build tools that help patients have something to go home with, so that they can refer back to what was I told when I left. So that's in the way of printed out material, as well as different apps we're looking at that would refer patients back to the instructions. And also their family members could look it up as well. If you've had an elderly parent who's gone to hospital and you've tried to quiz them after about what the doctor told them, you can appreciate being able to actually look at written instructions. And of course, infection prevention and control is probably one of the largest areas. Reduce infection through innovation. We actually are in the midst of installing some Frankie sinks that we'll be speaking about today, and those sort of the Cadillac of sinks in healthcare. So those are things that we're looking at. So how can you help us with the infection control, and how can you help us sort of avoid all the bureaucracy that we have, and partner with us? So thank you very much.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Sean DeRush, as Brent mentioned, from Frankie Kindred Canada. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the innovations that we've come out with, and specifically one that we've been working on for the past several years. But first, I'll just give you a little bit of the history of our company. We were actually founded in 1946. We moved to the Midland, to our present facility in Midland in 1962. So we've been a proud member of the community for many, many years. Most people probably driven by our factory many times. Probably many of you have wondered what goes on in there. And if it's a Friday afternoon, probably not too much. But the rest of the week, we're working very hard in terms of manufacturing deep-drawn stainless steel sinks. And we're probably best known for manufacturing kitchen sinks for residential homes, but we do so much more than that as well. In addition to manufacturing residential sinks, we also distribute faucets, waste disposers, basically anything that goes into a residential kitchen that's kind of in and around the sink. And then we also have a component to our business that is more focused on the commercial and institutional segments. So healthcare, the education sector, the corrections as well. So we have sinks as well that we manufacture locally for those various segments, but we also have water dispensers, drinking fountains, bottle filling stations. We make prison fixtures for prisons as well. So many different products that go into that are all kind of generally related to the plumbing and heating industry. And we've always been very well known within the plumbing and heating industry as being an innovator. Most of the features that you would see on a kitchen sink in somebody's home are innovations that started at Frankie Kindred over the years and have just become a standard in the Canadian market. Now, when it comes to innovation, how do we approach it? Basically, the way we look at it is we try to take a step back and look at it from our customer's perspective, and what are the biggest pain points for our customers. And a perfect example is what we're going to talk about here today, and that is for the healthcare industry. One of the biggest pain points, and Gail has mentioned this already, is infection control within the hospital, and the spread of bacteria that leads to infection. So some pretty staggering statistics when you look at the numbers on the board here, but in Canada, every 157 seconds, a patient acquires a hospital-associated infection. And every 52 minutes, somebody in Canada dies from that infection. So just to put those numbers into perspective, just during the summit here today, from 8 o'clock this morning to 1 o'clock this afternoon, 115 people in Canada are going to acquire a hospital-acquired infection. And of those 115 people, 6 of them are going to die. So this is a very staggering problem for the healthcare community. So, when our product development engineers hear this type of thing, they just get all excited, not because people are dying, but because there's an opportunity for them to solve a problem. Because the way we approach it is we try and find solutions for our customers. So in the healthcare facility, there's a problem with infection control. How can we contribute to solving this particular issue? So years ago, there were some code changes because it was identified that a big component to a leading generator to the infections within hospitals is the bacteria that builds up within a sink. And when you think about it, people are sick, they're in a hospital. When they wash their hands, the bacteria goes off their hands and into the drain. Over time, the bacteria that's within those drains continues to build and colonize and eventually makes its way into the environment, either splashes onto people, onto things around the sink, that sort of thing. The next person comes up, touches that, and that's how this obviously spreads around a facility. So the government made some changes in terms of the codes years ago where they required sinks to be a certain depth. That way, prevented splashing. The drains had to be off-center, so that would prevent splashing from the water out of the faucet hitting the drain and splashing out. So, this was the Z8000 regulation that was put into place in the codes, which, to be honest with you, did not very much in terms of helping to solve this problem. So at Frankie Kindred, our engineers in Midland here locally came up with a few ideas. They got together in their mad scientist room that we have in the facility and started trying out different things. And one of the things that they came up with, which proved to be very successful in our own, in our own laboratory, was the use of ozone within a kitchen or in a hand wash sink. So this is where the Metaflow sink comes in, and basically the way the Metaflow sinks work, there's a few key components to it. One is the depth of the bowl and the drain location, similar to the Z8000, prevents splashing. But that's only part of the issue. The other part of the issue, obviously, is the drain and the bacteria in there. So what we've done is we've instituted a ozone generator underneath the sink, behind the shroud, and what that does is, as that sink is activated, as the faucet is activated to produce water into the sink, there's actually a laminar flow that comes out of the back spout. And there's no faucet on this sink, so a faucet is just another area where bacteria can build up. So we actually have at the back of the bowl there, you'll see there's a little bit of a spout, and it's laminar flow water that comes out of there, which means the turbulence has been removed from the water. So that's another step to remove splashing. But it's the ozone within that water that is the key factor here. Because what happens is the ozone will actually kill the bacteria that's on your hands. As that ozonated water makes its way across the surface of the sink, it'll kill any bacteria that's on the sink surface. And most importantly, as that ozonated water makes its way down the drain, it kills the bacteria that's within the drain. So this is a real step forward in terms of solving this major issue in hospitals, and designed right here in Midland. Now, of course, we have our challenges as well. Even though we have this great solution, the challenge is, the time to get that to market. We've been working on the Metaflow sink for over 6 years now, and it's taken a lot of time. I could stand up here all day long and give you lots of facts and figures that we've come up with in terms of time kill studies within the laboratory at our facility, how great this thing is, but obviously we need some third-party research to back up that data, and that's a very time-consuming process. And just as of the month of April, there was actually a study that was finally published by there's a gentleman named Dr. Curtis Donsky, who is very well renowned within the infection control community. So he did a study with Case Western Reserve University in combination with the VA hospital in Cleveland. And basically they've been able to publish this study that shows that within 2 days of using ozonated water in a hand wash facility, in a hand wash sink, that the bacteria is killed within the sink strainer, and within 9 days, the bacteria within the drain is killed. So this is a very, very progressive study that's going to really help us take it to the next level in terms of having this accepted within the healthcare community. Now, the next challenge is the cost. So obviously to go into an existing facility, be able to replace a sink that's already in there, completely contaminated within the drains, very, very expensive. Now, not because the sink is expensive, but more so, just a second. Excuse me, a little dry up here. So it's not necessarily the sink that's expensive, it's more the cost to replace a sink within an existing facility. In order to basically prevent the bacteria that's within the drains and the plumbing system, you have to create basically a hazmat area that will contain all of the contaminants, prevent it from spreading. So it's about, the studies that we've been told, the numbers are about $15,000 to replace a single sink in an existing hospital. So the Metaflow sink, great solution, not necessarily great for an existing building. So this is where, for a new build, the Metaflow is a great product that's going to be a tremendous help. When it comes to an existing building, we've had to come up with a different solution. Now this is where later this year we're going to be launching what's called the OzoFlow faucet, which basically takes all those key features of the Metaflow sink in terms of the laminar flow technology, in terms of the ozonated water, and basically this is a solution that can be used in an existing facility to basically replicate what the Metaflow sink does in terms of killing the drain bacteria, killing the colonization of the bacteria and within the plumbing system. So this is something that's going to be launched later this year. We're very excited about it. Certainly the Metaflow sink can also be used in an existing facility. Collingwood Hospital has 5 that have been installed already as an example. But we think the combination of the Metaflow sink for new builds primarily, but also potentially for renovation, but then with the OzoFlow faucet for existing buildings where they don't have to worry about removing any of the sink or the drain line. It's just a simple matter of replacing a faucet, so you're only touching the supply lines. So it's a much healthier environment for those working and those around there. But this is a solution for those particular buildings. So we're very excited about this, and we think it's something that could really solve what's a major problem in the healthcare community. So thank you very much for your time.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you here today. I just want to quickly introduce Waypoint. Waypoint is about a 10-year-old organization with more than a 100-year history. It's got origins in the community dating back to the 1800s related to the naval and military establishment. And the branding exercise when we became a public hospital about 10 years ago led us to this name, and it's important to us because it represents a safe harbor, much like the physical location of the naval establishments and the hospital, located on the shores of Georgian Bay. And the patients and clients and members of our community that are experiencing mental health and addictions trouble, you can use Waypoint as a stopping point along their journey to treatment and recovery. So it holds a special place in this journey in the naval history of our community. And we find our founding story as a new organization grounded in that 100-year-old history. So a little bit about us. We aim to provide excellence in specialized mental health and addiction services grounded in research and education and guided by faith-based values. We are a 301-bed hospital. We serve 2 distinct groups of patients. One is national and largely provincial in our forensic programs, 160 beds dedicated just to male offenders that have legal and mental health challenges. So these patients are often literally and figuratively at the end of their road, often resistant to any of the modern medical treatments and pharmaceuticals that are available, and very challenging and difficult patients and clients to work with. And then we have 141 beds, which are more regional and more of the local area around us that we serve for a variety of conditions, including schizophrenia, anxiety and depression, dementia, et cetera. We also treat members of our community on an outpatient basis with over 22,000 visits per year, and that's growing and growing as we've got systems in place to serve them both Midland, Penetang, and beyond. and we're starting to grow. Accreditation Canada came in about 3 years ago, and a healthcare accrediting body, and found that we met 100% of the standards required to demonstrate good leadership and safety and value in a healthcare system, and we received their highest standing of exemplary status, and so this is a source of pride for our organization for sure. We have about 1,200 employees and about 120 volunteers that participate with us daily, and we are sponsored by Catholic Health Sponsors of Ontario, trying to promote the values that were adopted when the sisters, a variety of 7 different groups of nuns, came together to provide healthcare services before they were provided through local governments and tax funding. Part of that legacy related to the nuns and the Catholic sponsorship is that a lot of the mental health facilities that you'll see in the province have been divested from, many of them from the ministry into the Public Health Care Act and become standalone corporations, but they aim to continue the values espoused through the nuns. And so it's really important that that sponsorship group come together to maintain that faith-based values. We treat everyone and welcome everyone, but we try to ground our work in those Catholic values. You don't need to be Catholic to be part of our organization, and you don't need to be Catholic to become a patient in our organization. But they do represent, many of our patients represent the most vulnerable groups in society. They often are unemployable. They have very difficult challenges that are often persistent and severe. And so without a steady and regular place to come back to, touching on this waypoint notion, they would be sometimes cast adrift, distant from their families and their communities. So this is a really important calling for the people that come to work at Waypoint, is to make sure we have long-standing relationships to provide the hope that our patients look for in us. And those are some of the key things that they look for, is the belief in them and that we can help them find hope as they go through these difficult periods in their life. So we're often partners in healthcare, but as Brent talked to, we do more than just healthcare. We're involved in any of the aspects in our local community that have to do with the social determinants of health: food, housing, employment, social connection, things that you might not associate with a physical illness, but which are critical factors in mental health, and again, relate to the most vulnerable in our society. So partnerships is one of our 5 strategic directions, and it's a core feature. And if our CEO, Carol Lambie, was here, I know that she would speak to that. And having worked with Carol in a couple of different places, it's core to who Carol is, and so it's core to our organization. So partnerships are important, and the innovations that we can find together, this is an exciting opportunity for us to be together to do this. We have a role in anti-stigma and advocacy. This is some of the hardest work that we do. As I was sitting at the table thinking, what might be a question to ask the group? If we were to think that 1 in 5 people apparently have a mental health condition, I could ask you to put your hand up. And for many of you, that might generate a little bit of anxiety. I know that I have, and I've sought treatment in the past myself. But for other people, that's harder to answer, right? So that's the stigma we're talking about. There's self-stigma that people experience mental health and addictions issues. But if you think about the 1 in 5 and extend that to the families and the communities and the neighbors and the colleagues, then 5 in 5 is impacted by mental illness. So this is really an issue of our time and an issue that we need to work on together. So anti-stigma and getting over that fear of disclosure, is a starting point, and then spreading that to the community is really exciting for us, but hard work. Some of our key contributions that we thought might be relevant to this audience and this opportunity for partnership and innovation is we are an academic research institute with affiliations particularly with the University of Toronto, but with others as well. So we have a long history of skilled scientists and high quality research that has often worldwide impact. We have a very unique population of clients, particularly in our forensic setting. So they provide rich opportunities for researching, in some cases, high risk behaviors. But we're starting to move into a different direction, particularly with our new VP of Research and Academics, Nathan Kola. And we're looking at risk factors related to aggression and high-risk behaviors, but now we're starting to move into what are some of the biological components and correlates of mental illness and addictions. So we're trying to work in a partnership with the University of Arizona right now to bring a mobile MRI machine to take scans of our patients so that we can try to find those correlates of those behaviors that are grounded in a physical basis. Some of our really important work is post-traumatic stress disorder. Typical in the military or in the police force, some of our clients pose serious challenges that result in physical loss of control for them, which is a consequence of their illness. And that can lead to sometimes traumatic situations for patients and for staff. So working together to understand the situation for our staff is really important to us, and we've just been granted about $250,000 to work on a study across multiple centers and mental health and addictions facilities in the province to better understand violence and safety in the workplace. Our former Vice President of Research has also helped us try to innovate related to a standardized assessment for mental health and addictions, trying to find a measure of outcomes. Unlike our physical medicine counterparts, mental health is often difficult to quantify the outcomes. How do we know patients are getting better in real, tangible ways? And so using standardized assessments and working with a worldwide community of researchers and clinicians, Dr. Howard Barbary proposed an outcome indicator, which we're calling the Waypoint Outcome Indicator. And it's sort of moving the field forward so that we can find an objective demonstration of people's improvement over time and the therapeutic effectiveness. Aside from our clinical work and our research work, we think we're a very well-managed organization. Again, with 1,200 employees, $150 million budget. We've got great back office services, human resources, and our finance department, and our maintenance crews. All of those folks are well-managed and trying to find their own innovations to provide top value to our patients, clients, and to our communities. Some of you locally may know that Waypoint has sometimes been associated with workplace violence due to the nature of the business that we're in, and this is inescapable for us. We sometimes have high-risk situations and high-risk clients, but that makes us a leader in the province in terms of being able to address workplace violence. And our CEO and many of our senior team have been on provincial bodies to be able to help work with the broader public sector to understand workplace violence and what we can do, what we can put in place. And so we're often regarded as a leader and invited to those tables. And more, since this is becoming an issue for all of our workplaces in healthcare, we're being asked to show a leadership role and show others what we've done and help take them along with us. So this is, again, a source of pride for us, stemming from a challenging situation related to our clients. So enablers for us are clearly highly skilled healthcare professionals. We need psychiatrists, we need nurses, we need physicians, occupational therapists, we need researchers. We need more and more good people to come to what I think David called at our last meeting as a hub community. We need to be able to recruit those people and keep them here. And sailing and boating and the trails and the stops that you saw in the video are one part of that. But coming into an innovative community that's really focused on partnership and collaboration the way this community is, I think is really important for us. So just as another part as an enabler, but maybe a barrier, is that stigma that I talked about earlier. That's a key challenge for us. We have stigma within ourselves. We have stigma within our staff. We have stigma within our community, especially having a 100-year history here. I've got family members myself that confuse part of our hospital with a correction facility. They call them inmates. They're not inmates, they're patients, right? They're ill, they need that help. So that stigma is another key challenge for us. And so this is a great opportunity to bring that message to you and hopefully recruit you into that message to recognize how important the work we're doing is to the community and to the patients and families. So we look forward to finding ways to work together to overcome some of those things. Thank you.
So I press this. Welcome, good morning. My name's David Jarlett. I'm the president of Jarlett Health Services. Many of you may not know Jarlett Health Services, but locally we operate the Villa Care Center and Bayfield House in Midland. So our story begins actually not 40 years ago. Our story begins almost 50 years ago with my mom and dad buying a home, a 23-bed home on Yonge Street in Midland. Started with 10 employees, called the Villa Care Center. So we're pleased to say that in 2020 we're going to be in this community for 50 years. Currently signing agreements with the ministry, taking us beyond 2055. We're now, I'm second generation. We now have our third generation working in the family in our organization while retaining our company values. So what we do, we operate 14 long-term care homes that provide a home for seniors needing a high level of nursing and medical care to over 1,600 residents throughout Ontario. We also operate 6 retirement homes, and really we operate a resort and hospitality services for over 600 seniors, not wanting the chores and worries of taking care of their own, and having the option to purchase services or have those services available to them within their communities and at their homes. So for Jarlath, we continue to go beyond there and expand our services to include senior apartments and our townhouse portfolio. So quality. So a little bit about Jarlath. We've been the runner-up Canadian Family Business of the Year award, and that was competing with companies like Rogers. For the long-term care sector, we've won many, many awards for quality improvement, innovation, nursing leadership. And year over year, our company wins more awards than any other long-term care provider in our industry. We actively are involved with the Canadian Institute on Health Information, and these are publicly recorded indicators of our clinical care. And I'm proud to say that 7 of 9 of our quality indicators are above the provincial average and above the Canadian average. So we do a really good job of providing good clinical care to our residents in our homes. And this year we've been awarded another 120 long-term care beds to operate within the province, and specifically here also in North Simcoe. So who do we care? Who do we provide care for? Predominantly throughout all our portfolios, we're 85 years of age on average. 70% of our residents are female, and 60% have dementia, and a lot of people call it Alzheimer's, with multiple comorbidities these days. So I'll touch on our newest development. Our newest development, that's a site plan at 658 King Street in Midland. We have 4 phases, and you can see if you look on the far right-hand side, we're located, right on Little Lake Park, right on King Street, which is a main corridor road in the town. So we have the long-term care, which is to your far right. Closer to King Street on your left, top-hand side, is our retirement home, and furthest to the right are 3 buildings that you see there, and those will be our seniors' apartments, which will be also supported. So why did we rebuild? For people that don't know Jarlath too well, we're one of the largest continuum of care providers in Canada, where multiple service offerings are provided on one site. So that means people can move into an apartment, and as their care needs progress, they can move from an apartment or a townhouse to a retirement home to a long-term care home, and they can stay in one place all at one time and access those services. Obvious but not really talked about is our location that we had on Yonge Street. It's just not big enough, and we know our seniors population is going to double. So we needed a site that was going to allow us to grow. So we went from a 3-acre site on Yonge Street to a 14-acre site on King Street. And that's going to give us the space that we need to grow our business and meet the needs of the seniors in the community over the next, just over the next 20 years. Our residents are older. They require more nursing and medical attention. And not having a new facility designed for that does not allow us to expand our products that we provide to our residents and improve the service that we provide to them. So as Ontario's, an obvious one to everybody, as Ontario's deficits grow, governments have less and less money to spend on healthcare or services, and we see this as an opportunity as a private sector to step up to the plate for the private health market. So bad for the province to have large deficits, but it does change for us our model of delivery. So our homes, last is our homes need to be more home-like, but we also have to remind ourselves that long-term care is changing. We call it, and we're going to be providing care services like the hospital. We are going to be providing rehab, bariatric care, dialysis. We're doing those things now, and that's not only going to, that's just going to continue to expand within our environment. I am out of line. So our Center of Excellence, located on the main arterial road with bus services as close as possible. We have a central location on the campus to provide health services that will benefit our residents living in the community. So we're going to have a center of excellence hub. Our residents, by having a center of excellence hubs, will have things like physicians' offices and other healthcare, holistic healthcare services. So our residents don't have to leave our site to access those services that they wish. From an innovation perspective, I wouldn't say we do any crazy or new or outstanding things in the way of innovation. How we deal with innovation is incremental. We continue to look at our product that we're delivering. We continue day in and day out to reevaluate the product that we're delivering to improve it. And incrementally, where there's a clinical service, remember, best practice today is tomorrow's old practice. And I'm sure, like manufacturing, today's practice changes every day too. So for us, we stay committed to having partnerships with companies like KB Play, research organizations, drug companies. We will partner because by partnership with other research companies or organizations, we only learn, and from learning we can adapt and adopt those new ways and better ways of improving and innovating our product. So senior care is an opportunity for Midland. It's stable, it's well-paying. We'll be employing about 280 employees. It's a huge economic spin-off. And we think of it just as their suppliers that supply services, but it's things like our hotel, our restaurant businesses that people stay over and when they're visiting. And I think that's it for there. So our plans for the next 7 years as an organization is redevelop and expand our 8 long-term care homes, to add 5 new retirement homes. We're continuing to wanting to expand our apartment and townhouse business. And for us, that is a struggle because as an industry, it hasn't been done very often. It hasn't been done very much, and we want to make sure that we provide the products and services that will create that want for those seniors to come into our community. And in all our communities, developing communities that support a center of excellence, where we can develop relationships with industry, education institutions, and service providers so we can provide the best service. So the only thing I might add is that for the King Street property, it is a 4-phase project. It'll start with a 128-bed long-term care home. It will be designed to go to a 160-bed long-term care home. Our second phase, when the market's right, will be a 140-unit retirement home. That'll probably be a couple of years out. Then our seniors apartments, a couple of years out from there. And as the market's ready, that's when we'll do our fourth phase, and that will be expanding our long-term care services. So first phase is long-term care with our hub. And thank you.
Oakley. Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Canick. I'm the Managing Director of Ambient Activity, and our focus is to develop non-pharmaceutical activity-based approaches to managing agitated behavior in long-term care. So this is an opportunity to tell you guys a little bit about our story and how we started. We're over in the Mitsubishi building. And for the last 25 years, we've been developing play activities for commercial environments. You can see us in shopping malls. You can see us in shopping malls. You can see us in retail outlets, IKEAs, McDonald's, which is sort of where Roy and Ellis had a past. And we started our business at the height of the second generation baby boom. We're a mom and pop. And we thought, gee whiz, there was an opportunity for us to brand play equipment and put it into these locations, and we sort of cut our teeth. We realized over the years that that market is sort of stagnating. We're not having as many babies as we used to have. And we started developing expertise in activity or play in what we regard as niche markets, but thinking upon how activity can be used therapeutically. So for the last 10 years, we've been integrating play and play concepts. Can you hear me okay? Into places like child abuse centers and children's hospitals and libraries. And so we've developed this sort of understanding and expertise in play used in therapeutic environments. So we understand that activity, and it's such a human experience, is a necessary component to a state of well-being. I was asked about 4 or 5 years ago to bring in one of our play elements into a long-term care facility. It was in Elmvale. And I thought, gee whiz, this is a good market, a children's play products for the grandchildren coming in. And the therapeutic rec said, no, this is for people who live with dementia. And I really didn't have any understanding about cognitive impairments and the challenge of dementia in long-term care environments. So it was sort of an aha moment for us. And it really is a quality of life issue. It's these people living with these cognitive impairments with dementia exhibit this responsive behavior, aggressive behavior. And it's a challenge in long-term care. It's a significant challenge in long-term care. And here was, for us, another opportunity to think about how activity might be employed to help this care environment. Excuse me. We came to understand that the quality of care for this population was almost exclusively, thank you very much, dependent on the quality of care provided by the care environment. So the therapeutic recs, the TRs, the PSWs, the cleaning staff all have a role to help play in creating an environment that's inclusive. But there just simply is not enough care staff available for a variety of reasons, demographics. We wanted to create opportunities for spontaneous social interactions. So we just started wandering around and looking for best practices in activities. And we developed a team. We're very fortunate. In fact, we developed an approach, and we teamed up with the University of Toronto to study this approach, and we engaged the help of a couple of long-term care environments, primarily down in the Haldimand County. And we came up with this plan, and we identified 3 long-term care facilities that the University of Toronto wanted to work with in the GTA area. And we started off, and we realized very quickly that we were going to fall flat in our face unless we had a care partners that would help us. And we came up here, and we were very fortunate to have the help of Jarlath Homes, Grandview Lodge as well, Georgian Manor, Hillcrest, all helped us in proving the efficacy of our approach. So this is an example of an install for the test that we did. We had several workshops in the last couple of years in understanding what the problems were for the frontline care providers. We had workshops up here in Midland. We iterated a bunch of different types of approaches, and we finally came up to something that looks like I have in the hallway, and you're welcome to interact with. This is an example of one of the iterations we had at a home down in Haldimand County, and it was a gentleman who had been there for 4 months, had been basically not engaging with anything. And as soon as we put this in, he wheeled himself over to it and he just started interacting with it. And his wife was there and said this is the first time he's interacted with something in the 4 months that he's been in there. So people living with dementia will lose their explicit memory. So we lose our declarative memory, but we still have capability. We still have our implicit memory. So our approach is to take activity, make it familiar, and ask residents to interact. It's something that's familiar that they'll come over and they might pet a cat or turn a wheel. And then when they do that, if we can provide some sort of media response to them that's meaningful to them, and we do that, we ask residents to wear a beacon. It identifies the resident. So if my name is Oleg and I'm an 83-year-old Russian speaker and I've lost my ability to speak English, we can populate the technology with stuff, with content that's familiar to him so that when he interacts with it, it speaks Russian back to him, provides him pictures of his family members and that kind of thing, as a way to break the agitation scale. The challenge, we wanted to find our challenge is how could we use technology to help the frontline care providers, being that there just wasn't enough help. So we call our approach ambient activity. It's just there, available in the environment 24/7, so that when residents are wandering the hallways at 2 o'clock in the morning, they can engage with something, and it augments the care environment. It doesn't replace, it just simply is another tool for frontline care providers to help them with their task. We trialed this, as I mentioned, in 6 long-term care facilities with the University of Toronto, 3 up here, 1 at Jarlath, 3 down in the GTA area. We were able to demonstrate a significant impact on a bunch of measures. We used measures for agitated behavior, there's scales for that, for staff strain and burnout, and for visitor satisfaction. That's our story.
I'm really proud to be part of North Simcoe when you hear these presentations. The institution, big round of applause. We have so much going on and so much talent and creativity, it's quite inspiring. I just wanted to summarize quickly what we've taken you through on the healthcare journey this morning, and then we'll go to break. You've heard of the sword of Damocles. I have the sword of Roy Ellis hanging over me, so I got to get going here. As I said, we have significant healthcare infrastructure. We're fortunate to have Georgian Bay General Hospital, Waypoint, and Jarlath Health Services as sort of cornerstone institutions that are really well established and we should be proud of from what we've heard of today. We have great real-life examples of manufacturers innovating into the healthcare space, really inspiring. Sean and Mark, both really, really innovative work. And the fact that you've really taken this on locally and done it locally, and also that you've created data around your products, which is so critical, as you both know, in the healthcare space. Awesome, awesome stuff. Both of them have their products out in the hallway, as you've probably heard, but I just want to restate that so you can see demos, see how it works, ask questions. I also just wanted to pick up, you probably heard that there's already collaboration going on amongst the panelists, and that's a good sign for all of us that that kind of attitude and approach is taking place in our community. Certainly Jeremy highlighted how important that is, and I've heard it in many ways, in many examples from Jeremy. To be in a collaborative area for working together is a huge benefit when you're looking at creating innovative offerings and new business models. And last point I want to make is if anybody in the audience has any thoughts, ideas, or support they need, or connections they want made for product ideas they have or things they're thinking about doing in healthcare, give EDCNS a call. We're really, really hoping we can help you. Okay?
I skipped the bio, the whole bio. Matthew and I had a chat. We all know he's a wonderful man with a big title and goes all over the world. In fact, he got back from Calgary last night at 1:40. Got to our hotel room late, and thanks to Sharon, she had a basket of food in his room. So anyhow, the rest is history. So Matthew's a good friend of North Simcoe Manufacturers. He's been to many of our roundtables and well connected, and we really appreciate you being here, especially with all those travels of yesterday. So without further ado, Matthew Wilson.
Thanks, Roy. Well, good morning, and I want to thank Roy and Sharon and the whole group here for inviting CME and myself to come and speak. We have come to the roundtables, summits over the years to talk about what is happening in manufacturing, and it's a very positive and encouraging message that we tend to bring out, and I'll bring one today, despite some of the challenges that we have going on in the world around us, which I'll hit on as well. But the earlier panel really set the stage, I think, for a lot of what we'll talk about in the manufacturing panel, about the opportunities, certainly the challenges, but really what you can do at a local level and how you can grow economic development locally and take advantage of what is going on around you. First off, if you're not familiar with CME and who we are a not-for-profit industry association funded and paid for by our members, for our members. My job in that organization is to talk to companies about what's going on in their businesses. And so I travel the country, travel Ontario, talking to companies about the state of manufacturing, what's going on specifically in their companies, and more specifically, how we can help them grow, what they see as the opportunities that are out there, and how we can work with governments. I take that knowledge and I work with governments, federally, provincially, municipally in some cases, on manufacturing strategies and what's happening. So if you're not familiar with CME, as Jeremy was saying earlier, you have to do a plug for your employer, of course. If you're not familiar with us, check out our website, think about joining. We are a good organization that supports the growth of manufacturing across the country and here locally. Manufacturing is critically important. We often get bogged down in newspaper headlines about how manufacturing is dead and dying. Roy and I were joking last week that one of my favorite sayings, of course, is the old quote about the news of my death was premature. It is a long ways from dead, and for any government official in the room, you better hope it doesn't die. It is responsible today for 1.7 million Canadian jobs directly, about 4 million if you include indirect jobs, people in services, people like me, who service the sector, bankers, telecom companies, transportation providers. In Ontario, it accounts for 775,000 direct employees and about another 1.5 million indirect. So the sector is really important. It also, for all the healthcare panelists, it accounts also for in Ontario alone. The revenue that the manufacturing sector delivers to the province of Ontario accounts for 3/4 of the healthcare budget. So a third of all government revenues directly in Ontario come from manufacturers and their employees. So without the manufacturing sector, without a healthy, prosperous manufacturing sector, we don't have great healthcare, we don't have great education, we don't have great social services, roads, infrastructure. So the health of the manufacturing sector is critically important. And right now, the sector, I'll get to the positives, the sector is a bit under threat. Certainly last year, record year though, record year for output in Canada, record year for export shipments. Things are actually really good in the sector, generally speaking. We have a lot of really good things going on locally in Ontario, a lot of investments. We've seen Toyota just reinvest. We've seen major investments from companies like Novachem down in Sarnia. Those are all really, really good positive growth stories. On the other hand, our major export market, our major customer, our major competitor in a lot of ways, is causing a few problems for us as well. We've got a president of the United States who doesn't seem to be too much in favor of trade, doesn't really seem to understand integrated economies. And we are struggling with that in Ontario. And as a result of some of the actions there, we're seeing downturn in investment, specifically in Ontario. I've seen a big drop in Alberta if you look outside of Ontario. A lot of that investment is going into the United States, where it would have come here, and we used to get, we always talk about our fair share of investment in the province. A lot of that investment is going to the United States. And the situation with NAFTA, steel tariffs, counter tariffs by Canada is certainly troubling. That's what I've spent a lot of my last few weeks dealing with. And I'm happy to answer and talk to anyone that has any specific questions. But generally speaking, we're supporting what the federal government's doing. We can't just sit back and let the US apply a bunch of tariffs on one of our major exports. At the same time, we can't randomly apply a bunch of counter tariffs on imports coming in from the US because we use them in our everyday lives. Right? We use steel to make sinks, as we heard about in the last. That maybe have come from the US. A lot of automotive suppliers in the room, a lot of those parts that you bring in from the United States could be tariffed under the way the Canada-US relationship is going. We need to get NAFTA back on track if we're going to see that growth. And we see a huge amount of opportunities going forward for manufacturers here and across Ontario and more broadly across Canada. The US economy is booming if we can maintain access to that market. It's lowest levels of unemployment in a generation. Economic growth at 3% and 4% annually, certainly much stronger than our growth here. And so if we can tap into those opportunities, if we can break down some of those barriers, there are those great opportunities. Signing new free trade agreements with those around the world. We just got a European free trade agreement. Opens up our exportability into those markets, and certainly companies like Magna, who you'll hear from in a bit, already invested in those markets. Looking at Asian markets through the Canada, or the comprehensive trade partnership with 11 Asian markets, I guess 10 plus us, 11. So new market opportunities around the world. I think what we heard before too on healthcare, new opportunities in a whole bunch of new areas. Governments, one of the biggest opportunities we talk a lot about with governments is procurement. And so the healthcare panel you heard just a little bit before is one of the best opportunities that we see going forward. Not specifically healthcare, but government procurement more generally. Governments buy more than anyone else in the country. Good or bad thing, I guess, depending on where you sit. But they certainly do buy a lot of products. The opportunity that we see here, and what we've been working with the federal government on, for example, is procurement strategies that would tie the manufacturing community into the government procurement offices. So as healthcare providers are going out and buying new sinks, pharmaceuticals, wheelchairs, any equipment, we're encouraging them to work with Canadian suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, to make sure that Canadian content is fed into those. So we are, last year, for example, there was a new federal government fund set up that was specifically aimed at $100 million fund to bridge the gap between the manufacturing in Canada, the manufacturers, the innovators, the creators of products in Canada, and what government is purchasing. That's a brand new fund that was set up, directly a result of the activities that CME does. Those are new opportunities that are available today to folks like yourselves to look at, to tap into, to grow from. There's also other opportunities more generally, but I'm mindful of my time, but I will, Roy's been, if you've ever worked with Roy, he's really a taskmaster, and he's a great guy to work with because he keeps everyone focused. But there is a lot of broad-based opportunities, but we have to come together and work together on them. Ontario Simcoe is a great place to do business. We have a lot of members here, we have a lot of members in the province, and they talk about the strengths. Strengths like how people do work together locally, which doesn't really happen often in larger centers, especially in Toronto and other places like that. Bringing together education with industry, with government, to tie together to look at how we can solve local problems is a strength of this region, and something that should be and can be built upon. And we'll hear some of those stories coming up in the panel. But without focused effort, without focused action, we are going to struggle. Right now in Ontario and in Canada in manufacturing, despite record levels of output of exports, we have risks from the United States. We talked about the NAFTA changes. Donald Trump also, right, good or bad, whether you like him or not, drastically reduced corporate taxes, has gone through massive changes in regulatory policies and deregulating or streamlining regulations. From a manufacturing perspective, we call it leaning out the regulatory processes, making it easier to do business. We need similar actions here. We've called on, going into the last provincial election, the one that just finished, we called on all people who were running and now those elected MPPs to focus on a manufacturing strategy for the province. We have all these great opportunities around us here, around us in the world, but we can't get there if we don't work together collectively. So we have asked the Premier Designate, I think is the official title right now, for another week, Ford, and his new caucus coming in to focus on the manufacturing sector. That size, that strength, the importance of manufacturing in the province is critical, but we need to work together on it. We need to see proactive, pro-growth strategies coming out of this government, and we need to see them sooner rather than later. So we launched a campaign called Manufacturing Matters. For those of you who are hooked up to your phones right now, you can go on manufacturingmatters.ca, sign your name up to a petition calling for the provincial government to implement a manufacturing strategy. We need to see this new government take action. We need to see lower electricity rates. We need to see better balance between labor and business needs in the communities. We need to see stronger ties between post-secondaries, research institutions, and our manufacturing community. We have a great opportunity. We have great infrastructure in this province, but we need to work together to see it and work together to grow. So there is a real opportunity that I feel this is a great community where you can start these local activities in. And we see only real prosperous opportunities here and abroad. But again, we need to work together to make that happen. So please visit the website. Please support our cause. It is a critical mission that we're on if we're going to grow and prosper in the manufacturing sector. So with that, I'm pleased to welcome up our panel, and you're all sitting, I think, at this table here. And I'll introduce you as you're coming up. And they're going to talk about some of those specific opportunities and what they're working on locally and the prosperity that they're bringing. So we've got our 5 panelists. Our Mark Loesch is the President and CEO of North Simcoe Tool Manufacturing. They're suppliers of machine components to the manufacturing industry. Christine Vanderweeg, who's the operations manager of Georgian Bay Reinforcement Fabrics, that does industrial textiles. Brian Maurice is the engineering manager of Maurice Mechanical Services, do customs machines, building and integrating. Stephen Barber is the owner of Lakeland Interiors, does custom cabinetry and furniture. And Doug Ewan, who is senior HR manager, of Magna Tech Form. And you all know Magna as an automotive parts manufacturer. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark first, and I'll be back up a little bit later on. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Loesch, the owner of North Simcoe Tool in Midland. Doug over there has asked me to just remind everyone that in the spirit of manufacturing, we are focused, we are precise, and we're going to try to make Roy happy and get us all back on time. As Matt pointed out, we're a machine shop supplying manufacturers with precision components, machine components, that assist them in their various manufacturing processes. My father started North Simcoe Tool in 1973. He was an immigrant from Germany in 1960. Back in those days, the Canadian government pretty much told you where you were going to locate, and it was based on where there were jobs available. He ended up living in Hamilton, Ontario, but one of the people that he had met on the boat coming over was placed in Midland working for Lights, the camera manufacturer. One weekend in the summer, my father decided that it'd be nice to visit him, so he came up here. He loved the area so much, he took a 50% cut in pay. Absolutely had to be here. The lifestyle of North Simcoe was just too good to pass up. He later on worked for Lights himself for a period of time. Lights, if you don't know, is now Raytheon Elcan. And then he started North Simcoe Tool later on. Myself, I have a degree in mathematics from the University of Waterloo. I had many career opportunities, but in 1989, when my father was talking about retirement, I decided to move back to this area myself. Again, it was just too much to pass up. I recognize the value and the potential that life in North Simcoe have. In the early 1990s, this area was home to quite a few manufacturing companies. However, as time went on, the manufacturing landscape in this area changed quite a bit, and I had to refocus North Simcoe Tool, refocus our direction to try to explore new business opportunities. Since that time, we've become a truly international company. We now have markets within Canada, the US, and also within Eastern Europe, and actually even one in China. There we go. So part of the reason for our success is our never say no attitude. Often a customer will ask us to step out of our comfort zone and manufacture something challenging. Instead of declining these opportunities, our talented team of designers, toolmakers, and machinists, we embrace those opportunities and we try to turn them into our advantage. Not too long ago, Diageo, it's a company that many of you are probably not familiar with, but Diageo is a company that owns many of the popular liquor brands. They own Crown Royal, Smirnoff, Johnnie Walker, Bailey's, and so on. They approached us to build commemorative chess sets for their retiring executives. Each chess piece was basically a replica of one of their products. That was certainly a very interesting project for us and certainly beyond the scope of our regular work. We constantly invest in new technology, enabling us to improve efficiency, accuracy, and our capabilities. The machine we purchased most recently weighed over 25,000 pounds and required us to line our paved parking lot with 1-inch thick steel plates, just so that the delivery forklifts could unload the machine and get it into our building. We have a very close relationship with many of our customers, and we're often consulted when they're faced with a challenge to see if we can help them solve a problem. Our customers often visit us to go over a job or to check on the progress of a project, and they sometimes suggest that we get a larger building or hire more people or buy more equipment. And while we certainly want to grow, we always want to keep in mind that our size does make us nimble. We're often able to change gears quickly and to provide responses and solutions in a timely fashion. North Simcoe Tool is certified to ISO 9001. That's an international quality standard. This certification, along with our participation in the Canadian Controlled Goods Program, give our customers the confidence they need to engage our services when a challenging opportunity arises. McDonald Detweiler, that's the company that built the Canada Space Arm, they came to North Simcoe Tool to machine some prototype bushings that were wearing out on the space arm. We had the right experience and we had the right technology, and we were able to help them successfully complete their design. When the University of Calgary was experimenting with a remote-controlled surgical device for complex brain surgery, we were contracted to build some of the mechanical components used in the operating room. We provided scalpel holders and several other precision components used remotely in the surgical process. We worked on prototype drilling equipment used by the Northern Centre for Advanced Research and Technology when they were bidding on the Mars rover project. The prototype augers that we built would have drilled holes in the surface of Mars and used to extract core samples. Another client of ours, Alpine Shredders, is a manufacturer of paper shred trucks that you see. They were set up as an assembly and distribution facility by their parent company in New Zealand, but they were struggling. They were having some supply and quality issues. They looked at several companies in Ontario to become one of their suppliers for machine components and had asked a machine tool supplier to see if they could recommend any shop that would be able to do what they needed done. Alpine ended up knocking on our door. We had just purchased the exact type of machine that Alpine would need to manufacture many of their components. They now are 30% of our business, and we are the only supplier to machine components for them. We even had the filming crew of How It's Made spend a day in our facility for one of the episodes when Alpine Shredders was one of their episode topics. Our dedication to the machining industry is evidenced by our commitment to youth. We are members of the College of Trades, and we are currently volunteering our time to redesign the apprenticeship program for tool and die makers and machinists. We participate with the OEAP program and with high school co-op programs in order to try and encourage young people to enter the trades. Finding skilled people is still by far our biggest challenge. And while international free trade issues and tariffs certainly have an effect on us, it's imperative that our society helps to promote the trades. Recently, 2 of my children have returned to this area and joined the business, carrying on our family tradition. Companies like ours are only viable if we have the skilled men and women to do what we do. Thank you.
My name is Christine Vanderweg, and I work for Georgian Bay Fabrics. So who are we? We're a locally owned company for 17 years. We employ locally 15 people and around 20 globally. We supply the composite industry, which is plastic reinforcements. We weave industrial textiles. We make it out of glass, carbon, Kevlar, and exotic fibers. Our customers are in sporting goods, the chemical industry, automotive, marine industry, and our products go to Canada, US, China, Brazil, Vietnam, Japan, and the Middle East. Why do people pick us? We're a top quality manufacturer. We're flexible and we can respond quickly. We're innovative and we are active in the research and development. We're service oriented and we focus on creating a healthy workplace. So we have a real strength, the empowerment of people and workers. We don't have supervisors or managers on shift, and we have a attitude of creating it all together. We support the environment, sustainability. We support local children's charities and activities. What's our advantage? Again, our advantage is our people. The people that work for us work independently and they work, they're self-reliant. We support the community and again, we put the environment first. We have the motto that the customer is almost king. Little pushback's always okay. We focus on quality, we are flexible, we under-promise, but we over-deliver. We have the ability to make quick decisions and to change things over quick so that our customers receive what they want in a timely manner. We're supplying into broad markets and we're supplying into niche markets. We've empowered and valued employees. They're self-managed work teams, and again, there's no direct supervision. How do we drive innovation? So we qualify yearly for about 5 projects in the SR and ED program. We've introduced this non-crimp process, which you see running down the middle of the surfboard. It's a carbon fiber hot melt unidirectional process. We've developed a multi-layered weaving process, which is used in a pipe fixing project. We've reduced packaging through 4R initiatives. We develop products for all the board markets. So if you stand on a board, we develop product for it. Again, surf, paddle, windsurf, kite surf, and we're developing new materials, green alternatives. So currently, hemp and basalt are the trend. We also drive innovation through our weaving looms. These are computer-controlled looms that collect data. We have new processes like heat cleaning tapes, new designed fabrics with diagonal weaving, new opportunities with old looms. We have a hot melt fabric and carbon weaving process. So our future growth challenges, again, are politics and trade barriers. We are hand in hand with the United States in many of our ventures. We have partnerships with many companies in the US. So any trade barriers that occur there are troubling for us. We're always looking for skilled, self-reliant workers. We need parts suppliers that are close by. Industrial grade contractors, and a reduced government red tape. Also the banking system and how to go about purchasing your own business. We know how to. It would be easier if it was easier. And that's it. Keeping it quick.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Maurice. I'm an equal partner with my brother at Maurice Mechanical Services Limited. We remain a family-owned business and have operated for 27 years. Maurice Mechanical is a builder, integrator, and innovator of production machinery. We conceptualize, design, build automated machines, production lines, and test equipment. Our market is primarily based in the automotive industry. We have, however, manufactured machines for the office furniture industry, the mining industry, and the printing industry, to name a few. We also include automation for the Canadian nuclear industry as part of our repertoire. For one of these machines, we were nominated for a Design Innovation Award. Unfortunately, the award wasn't ours. Obviously, innovation's not unique to Maurice Mechanical. Maurice Mechanical has shipped many machines to customers in Canada. We've also shipped machines to customers in the US, Mexico, India, and China. We employ 18 people with a broad experience base of many disciplines enabling the manufacture of production equipment. We use a team structure for all projects to foster a self-driven work ethic. I forgot this was there. Pardon me? Okay. Why Maurice Mechanical? We're known for aggressive innovation. We're always reaching and grasping for the next best step in production machinery. We specialize in production automation. We have 27 years of automation experience. Our focus is on reduced processing cost, improved cycle time, and equipment reliability and durability. Our mission statement is to exceed performance and quality standards, to manufacture machines with pride, to be followed up with exceptional service. A lofty statement that we pursue daily. The Maurice Mechanical advantage. We stay on the leading edge of production automation, incorporating the latest technologies to enable our customers to compete in the global market. We employ and seek out employees who shine in the many professions we need. We push for loyalty and commitment between Maurice Mechanical and our customers. We hope this goes both ways. I've got 4 examples of some recently completed processing innovations. The picture shows a machine that we recently shipped. In this case, the challenge was to install and engage a lever return spring in 1.5 seconds. We employed a multi-axis robot with custom precision end effector to achieve this. This method improved integration into the assembly line and eliminated the requirement for manual assembly, which solved many operator ergonomic and safety issues. Example number 2. Okay. This is an automatic multi-position and elevation screw driving machine. For this challenge, we used another multi-axis robot fitted with an automatic screw staging and driving head. A servo-driven torque sensing and angle monitoring screwdriver was used. Screw feeding to the installation system was provided by a vibratory bowl feeder and blow system. The end result was improved cycle time, improved flexibility, and we can alter the robot programming for processing of many different parts in the same machine. Huge reduction in capital costs. Example number 3. We're now using precision grease dispensing valves to shoot or throw precise amounts of grease at extreme speed, up to 4 inches away from the grease target. We can achieve several hundred blobs of grease per second if necessary. Grease is very important in many aspects of the automotive industry. We are also using a laser sensor to confirm each grease application by looking at the surface before and after grease application. This is complete within milliseconds per grease dot. This has also helped our customer to see a significant cycle time reduction and a significant improvement in flexibility and quality parts. A fourth example. This is a CNC riveter with a third servo axis for riveting. I believe we're the first people to do this. Recently, a competitor, a very large competitor out of Germany, has demonstrated a unit. However, it was several months after we developed ours. This method allows for riveting, cycle, process, data collection for all rivet parameters such as rivet hardness, final rivet height, and rivet height prior to the riveting process. This method has improved precision and flexibility. We've reduced process cycle time and offered a significant savings in capital and space requirements. The next steps in our business are pursuing flexible automation. The line, the equipment I just showed you is completely flexible. Everything is CNC or is robot driven, and our customer can run multiple products on the same line. It allows for evolving part specifications as well, has reduced cycle time, and a huge reduction in capital requirements. Future growth challenges for us. In terms of innovation, of course, it's just our imaginations. In terms of practicality, we're limited by strong and experienced tradespeople in Ontario. Thank you very much for your time.
Does this work, Doug? Or is this working or no? Yes. Okay. Hi, I'm Stephen Barber from Lakeland Interiors. First off, it's different behind the lights here. I have new appreciation for the people up here performing. So we'll just go to the next one. I guess we won't. So who we are, we're a custom manufacturer of high-end wood products. I've been doing this for, right out of high school. Fortunately enough, I was able to go to one of the premium woodworking colleges when I left school, which allowed me to pursue my trade. And I moved this area about 30 years ago, and much like everybody, I fell into another family business. And I learned about management, started off as a project manager, and inevitably became the plant manager there. And we did, going back to healthcare, we did schools and hospitals and courthouses, and that was our sort of expertise. And as I left that facility to start my own business, the economy had changed, and most of the guys who do tool and die would appreciate this. You have like A, B, and C type work. All the C stuff went overseas. So we were left with B and C. Or sorry, A and C, A and B. So we decided to pursue A, the higher end stuff, as a way to find our own niche in the market. So that's where we went, and it's very rewarding. And it's given to our skill level. That's where we've gone. So if we can go to the next one there, I guess. Whoops, sorry. What we do as far as our product. Like I say, it's very high end, and we're very fortunate enough that we can work with some of the top designers in Ontario. This is just an example of one of our pieces in a magazine at House and Home. So what we do is we have our skilled tradespeople, which a lot of them have started as very young age. We have two people who started out as co-op students, believe it or not, who've been with us for like 15 years still. We hire men and women. If you look at your sort of YMCA brochure, women in trades, that's our woman, right? So we're very fortunate for what we've been able to achieve. What I was hoping to speak to is sort of like the boutique type manufacturing. We're 10-person manufacturing, which are a lot of people are starting, when you get into a small community like this. Potentially you could grow it further, but right now it's satisfying. What I really enjoy about what we do is the creative element. And I see that there's a lot of that missing in the younger workforce coming in, and I'd someday like to, like I've been able to do, teach people that creative element, engage young people so that they realize that the trades is not all about standing behind a machine. Most of our, we do have, fancy machines. We have CNC machines. We press our own veneer. We do everything. We are a fully outfitted shop. We make every piece from beginning to end. But the biggest asset of our company is our people and their ability to work together creatively. And that is our edge with our clients, right? We can do anything. Where a lot of companies have gone to buying everything in, we've gone the opposite. We build everything, right? Every part that we do is unique. Oops, I bet you I'm doing it backwards again. So we do our own in-house designing. You can just see, multiple shapes, whatever you need to do to make it work. So we'll go to see what we have next here. So this is what's happened is everybody's always looking for that unicorn, that other piece that you can do that you can sell and repeat, right? And every manufacturing company has it. A lot of what we do is we do what you call architectural woodworking, where we build it, we install it. It could be libraries, it could be kitchens, it could be just about anything. And what we've done recently, as the Canadian dollar has dropped, there's become an opportunity to do more and more furniture type items. The little one up in the right hand corner, we did a couple of those. They're being shipped to Florida, where before you wouldn't do them, but now with the economy, we're able to do them, ship them to other countries and stuff like that, and still still make some money on them, sort of thing. So that one is, believe it or not, made on our CNC machine. And then it goes to another group of artisans where they spray brass on top of it and then hand burnish it and then send it overseas. That's the lower table there, sort of like an Art Deco table that's going to have a top on it. It's going to be 5 feet by 11 feet for a customer, and it's going into their house. And we made all the components on our CNC machine and laid up all the veneers and everything like that by hand to do it, which is, a lot of the woodworking companies have gone to screw boxes together, buy the doors in, clip them on, and send them out the door, where we've decided to do the opposite, much like a lot of the colleagues I'm standing here with today. They've decided instead of back off on manufacturing, they're going to challenge themselves to do more manufacturing. So that pattern is a detail that we do with our new veneer press. So that's what you call, it's like a burl configuration, which is made out of multiple pieces of wood, all arranged in a certain pattern to be, artistically beautiful, right? And that's kind of what we're doing. Much like, and then this is a commercial job, So we're starting to combine metals with wood because that's what everybody wants, is a complete package. So that one's we did all the wall paneling. It's all trimmed with solid brass. All the furniture on it all has that burl pattern on them like we saw before. Dining room tables, those curved arches are in a plastic surgery clinic that we did. So we do commercial, we do residential, and for us, what makes it work is everybody enjoys doing it. And the challenge is conveying that to the next generation, that there is fulfillment in that. I just came back from an install in Ottawa where we did a reception area in one of the big software companies. And in order to make their job interesting, they're focusing on making their surroundings interesting, because the jobs are so, they're computer programmers. They sit and program all day long, so they try to make their surroundings beautiful. So A, that's another opportunity for us, but B, it tells you what people are looking for in jobs, right? And we are trying to, that's why I went out on my own. That's why when I left the company that I was very happy to work with, when they closed, I went out on my own to pursue that creative element and do it within a community I want to live in. And you saw it was so evident when you go to other places like we do to install products and stuff like that. When I was in Ottawa installing that product, you see all these younger people are in Ottawa because it's cheaper to live. They're working in these companies that have a creative element to them. And that's what we have to sort of work to creating here as well, too. You know, we have the more economical environment to live in, beautiful water, surroundings and that. We have to attract more skilled people that would be interested in, you know, that can see that as well, too. Am I gonna hit this the right way? So this is, you know, that's some of the equipment we have in our shop. That's our CNC machine. You know, we've had it for half a dozen years. So we've stepped into it when it was just first coming on board. We draw a cabinet in 3 dimensions, and it breaks all the parts out, sends it to the CNC machine, nests it, pops out a perfect jigsaw puzzle. So we can, instead of buying those parts out, we can make them fast and effectively. And then we can concentrate on the more high complexity details, right? So what's driving innovation in Lakeland? I guess it's their ability to give the customer what they want. We, like I say, we're very fortunate that we get to work with all the top designers all over Ontario. And one thing I would just like to acknowledge one more time before I step down, that in these small communities, it's all family businesses. We're a good part of them, right? And I had a chance to meet everybody at the coffee break, and you know, like I'd like to just put a bit out there to the Jarlett family, incredible employers in the area. And I met Dan and his son Spencer. Like that's what we need, that unicorn, that next young man who's going to take over the reins, right? That's what every company's hoping for, right? And also some newcomers that we've had over the last little while. I think Scott's here from Grounded. You know, he came here to start a coffee business. Now he's shipping coffee all over the place, and he's sitting on the local board, right? So, you know, I think that's where we need to go. Hopefully I illustrated that sort of boutique manufacturing correctly, but a lot of it is you know, starting off as a small company, and all these companies are growing, and if you ignore the small businesses, you're missing the whole picture, I think. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. My name is Doug Ewan, and I'm here from Magna Tech Form. I'm representing I'll say the larger manufacturers in the area. When you take a look at Tech Form, who are we? We're a global automotive parts supplier, and I don't just mean Magna, I'm talking about Tech Form specifically right now. Tech Form itself is a global automotive parts supplier doing wire forming, hinge systems, and automotive seating. We do metal welding, forming, assembly, and we do it Canada, US, Mexico, South America, and Asia. So we are truly a supplier globally. We too, though, started as a family business. We started in 1971 as a family business in Penetanguishene, and we've grown through that time. Up to 2014, we had significant growth in the industry and in the area up until the point that Magna came to purchase Tech Form. And the reason Magna wanted to purchase Tech Form is not just because we were in the automotive business, it's because of the degree of innovation that Tech Form has driven over the years, and the can-do attitude that people in this area have. So why Tech Form? Why did everyone come to Tech Form, whether pre-Magna or Magna? Number one, we're a full service supplier. We're a vertically integrated manufacturer, meaning that we don't just buy parts and put them through. We build the parts from metal coils, things like that. Many proprietary processes that we've designed and developed in-house. And I'm going to take a look to my left here and say we have two companies with Maurice Mechanical, North Simcoe Tools. Maurice Mechanical, you're going to see some of their innovations cropping up in some of our innovations. And when I look out in the audience as well, I see some people that have worked with Tech Form over the years. So when we work together, we work collaboratively with the community. For TechForm, we also do in-house tool and fixture design and build. So we also have an R&D center. Dan McLeod is at the back. Dan's our Director of New Business Development. And Dan is in the process now of taking our R&D center and taking it to the next level to be not just for TechForm, but part of Magna's global effort in the products that we make as well. So they're looking to TechForm for that because that's the kind of people we have up here. We hold over 20 product patents as well in our industry. So the TechForm advantage, number one, we stay on the leading edge of automation for both product and process. We're always looking for the next best thing in the product. That's where the R&D center comes in. We're also looking for the next best thing in processing, working with our local partners and our own R&D facility as well. We're also relentless in our customer focus and maintaining a family culture. One thing that TechForm has always stressed is the family culture. I was raised in Parry Sound. I moved to Toronto. I moved back up to this area 27 years ago. And the reason I'm here, the reason each one of the people here are here in this area, and anyone who is working locally, you're here because of this area. You're here because of what this area has to offer in terms of not just cost of living, but in terms of quality of living and what we have to offer. So we're all here for that reason. So we recognize that at TechForm, and we really drive to maintain that family culture and an entrepreneurial spirit within a global corporation. Couple of innovations. I just want to go through a few things that TechForm has done. Number one, in terms of process, servo-driven tube bending. So it's better repeatability, precision adjustments, and reduce scrap and setup cost. We used to do this through hydraulics and with metal and hydraulics, trying to maintain the form of the tube, and every time you put a new lot of steel in, you had to readjust. This process makes that adjustment easier and more efficient. So every time we're launching a new line, again, internally and working with our partners, we always look for that next best step that's going to make it better and faster. Laser cutting. We've moved into laser cutting. Dan, 4 lasers now? 8 lasers now. So just the speed of growth in lasers as well. Better customer attachment point control. Where we used to stamp the holes previously, it was always hard to make sure you got the relationship, especially when you had some tube deformation that was happening. When you get into lasers, now you can cut the hole one with respect to the other. No tube deformation, improved customer quality, and basically you can cut anything that the engineer can dream up. We move into hybrid wire cells, wire forming cells. And again, I'm going to turn to Brian here because TechForm and Maurice Mechanical worked very closely on the development of this. It improved the wire forming capability, it improved product quality, the automation of the process was significantly increased so that we're much more competitive in the market. Whether we like it or not, Canada is a high-cost manufacturing zone in the world. And if we're going to be successful, we need to drive automation. We need to bring automation in to control that labor content to a greater degree. We would much rather have 400 or 500 very solid, very strong jobs than 1,000 that are very tenuous. If you take a look at TechForm today versus where we were today, we have almost 50 robots in play today. By the end of this year, we will have almost 60 robots, and within the next couple of years after that, we will be pushing up over 80 robots. So that is the kind of automation, that's the type of automation that's being driven to be able to produce product more effectively, more efficiently, and more competitively in a global market. Some product innovations. We have the tailgate lift assist, designed, developed, and patented by TechForm. This provides the customer with different levels of performance by reducing the weight of that tailgate. The tailgate, which might weigh anywhere from 50 to 70 pounds, the assist lightens it up or makes it feel like it's lightened up on the way down and closing it up as well. So we developed that at TechForm. Isofix child tether rings. We have a couple of processes that we've done in here. We designed, developed, and patented this product with peening rather than welding. The industry traditionally welded this product on, which again creates a lot of deformation and it makes it more difficult to install. One of our customers actually tested it and they were able to pull the ring. They actually destroyed the seat frame before they destroyed our ring. That's how strong and that's how effectively built the ring was. So again, reduced cost with no welding. So when we take a look at our industry overall, one thing that we wanted to talk about was some of the challenges that we're facing as an industry. I mean, certainly we're going to have those situational challenges like Bill 148 and like free trade. I mean, these are things that are always going to come up from time to time in those situational roles. However, there is the one challenge that we all face, and I think if I asked any manufacturer in the room who's facing a challenge with skilled trade, I don't care where you're from, throughout Ontario, down into the States, you're all going to say we face a problem with skilled trades, because I believe this is a generational issue. It's a common theme across Ontario, and I can also tell you it's a common theme throughout the U.S. We have a reduced stream of people who are going into the trade, a lack of strong skilled trades development in Ontario, and our trades programs even in high schools have slipped as well. And I'm going to use the phrase that Steve coined in the meeting that our group had, that we've lost blue collar cool. When you look at the things that these companies are doing, when you look at the things and the innovations that are going on, this is cool. There's really amazing stuff happening. And we need our kids' parents, and we need society to understand that this is really something. So we want to bring back blue collar cool. What I really want to focus on, though, to close off our advanced manufacturing group, is not the deficiency, it's why North Simcoe is better and different. And for the people who are sitting in the room who are from North Simcoe, you guys are participating in this. For the people who are sitting in this room who are not from North Simcoe, maybe you're here kicking some tires, what I want you to know is I want you to know that North Simcoe's on the bleeding edge of fixing this issue. So we have internal actions that everybody's taking. Homegrown apprenticeships, homegrown semi-skill and teaching and training in those areas. We have a partnership with Georgian College going where we're developing some semi-skilled training that we can bring into companies to help bring the skill up within the companies. We have the EDCNS partnership with Georgian College on the multi-trades program, and fostering accessibility is an area that we're going to continue to drive accessibility through New Canadians. And all of this is happening in partnership as well. When you look around at the partnerships, and I'll talk about that shortly, but County of Simcoe and the Economic Development Office is a big part in this with us as well. We're going right back, though, to primary school, and I'm going to refer back to what Jeremy talked about when he talked about the TRL levels and what we're dealing with on the TRL levels. This is TRL 6. Jeremy, where'd you go? TRL 6, just remember that part of it. Okay. Incubator development. We're going right back into grade 4 to grade 6. Incubator development and automation, and starting to draw kids in as early as grade 4 to grade 6. Secondary school development. Of course, we've got the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program, but we're also working extensively with school boards in shop development, working with school administrations. We're trying to get to those grades 7 and to 12 to promote the trades in those groups as well, and not just the students, but their parents too. Trades focus at the post-secondary level. Here's the, Jill, where are you? Here's the go big or go home point from Simcoe County. We want to develop a new trade because there is a hole in the manufacturing sector. There is a hole in the trades, and that is around integrating all of the tool and die, general machinist, the controls, the electronics, all of that into one trade. North Simcoe is driving that, and we are going to be pushing that very hard, and we're dealing with Georgian College in that space as well, and Georgian College is coming along with us as well as the local companies. So in the end, what I want you to know from North Simcoe is we have the will and the skill. We're going to drive change from North Simcoe, and I think that's what really sets us apart. We're going to reestablish that blue collar cool. And we're going to bring kids back into those trades.
What an excellent, positive way to finish the panel. But we all promised we were going to cut about a minute or so out of our presentation, so we had about 5 minutes or so at the end for Q&A. There's a couple of microphones. We've got about 10 minutes, I'm told. There's a couple of microphones floating around. If anyone has any specific questions of anyone. Oh, not yet. So I just have one question maybe, and I want to pick up, Doug, where you kind of left off and ask others to talk about what you're doing on skills development. This was a common theme that each one of you talked about. Each one of you touched a little bit about what you're doing and what your priorities are in your companies. Could you maybe expand on it? I know, Mark, you touched on it, about your experience at the OYAP, but could you talk a little bit each about what you're doing on skills development, how you're engaging youth? Because this is one of the big challenges, as Doug pointed out, for manufacturers today.
So I won't.
I think you have to go pretty close.
So, okay. So one thing, I mean, among the obvious of participating in OEAP and high school co-ops and so on, one thing that I know that I've done personally, as I mentioned in my speech, I have a degree in math. So math has always been something really exciting and cool for me. When my youngest son was in high school, I approached his grade 10 math teacher and I asked him that when he taught his trigonometry class, could he please invite me along? And the whole purpose was that in what we do every day in a tool and die shop, we deal with angles and curves and tangents and we deal with trigonometry all the time. My point was that I could go into a grade 10 classroom and try to make it real for them. I looked at a lot of their textbooks, a lot of the, how far does the ladder have to be away from the wall in order to achieve certain safe ratios and whatnot. That seemed kind of boring to me. So I tried to make it more relevant. And I was very fortunate that most of the high school teachers just love sitting at the back of the class and listening for a change. So it was something that I really took a lot of pride in and one of the things that I could do. So, all the panel members and others as well, that's something that each of us can do, is just to, do a little bit of something, just to engage. And even if, in some of these classes, I might have had only one or two that were truly interested, but those one or two can make a difference. And it's something that I've certainly found useful and enjoyable.
Anyone else? Don't be shy.
Hi. We've been far more basic in what we've been doing to support that part of our business. We've taken on several apprentices over the years, electricians and tool makers and machinists. And most of my employees are long-term. I have people that we've actually essentially drug right out of high school, and they're still working for me today. Some of these people, 20 years. That's actually all we've done.
I guess we always participated in the co-op. It sort of became a bit of a negative for a while, unfortunately, when they got rid of, everybody started doing a victory lap. They took, one science, one gym course, and one co-op, right? And you weren't really, we sort of lost connection with that. So if people out there from the school board, really what you have to do is have qualified co-op students who actually are considering it, not just taking it as a, as a credit, because it became a bit of a negative in the shop, right? Sure. Because, you had to, in the past, all of our co-op students have won the co-op award, right? Right, they were making projects that second-year apprentices would make, not screwing picnic tables together, right? They were making dining room tables with wood inlays and turned legs and doing the finishing on it and, leaving with a real feeling, is this what I want to do? And the ones that felt that this is what they want to do, they stayed, right? And we also have we've always had girls with us, and we did attract, we've attracted some people through that YMCA group as well, where they find candidates for you, and we try them out on sort of an interim basis, and I guess you get a little bit of a subsidy. I don't think, unfortunately, apprentices are your most expensive employees, though. Your most expensive employee is your cheapest employee. Yeah. And that's what young people have to understand, is that if you are smart and you are a math lover, or you're a Lego kid growing up, that you'll always do well in the trades. I always did well in the trades. I went from working on the tools to working in management to owning my own business. I was able to buy a house and put a couple kids through university. It's a good deal, right? Thank you.
Thanks.
Now we don't have Chris Weber here right now, Chris from Weber here right now, so I'm going to speak from his standpoint. I believe they have 21 people in trades right now. From a tech forum standpoint, today we have 7 people in, they have 21 in apprenticeships right now, not trades, but apprenticeships. We have 7 at tech forum right now. We'll have 3 more by the end of this year. And in addition to that, we're working extensively with the co-ops from a college university standpoint. We have 6 co-ops working at tech forum right now as well in trades and engineering.
Christine, did you want to add on? Are you good?
We don't qualify as a trade, and so
Closer to your mouth.
we don't qualify as a trade. So the weaving industry is not considered a trade. So all of our people write a mechanical aptitude test to come into our facility. This allows us to determine that they are of a certain stature, and then we do all our in-house training. So our training is about a 2-year process to get them to be good weavers.
Excellent. Okay. Let me just wrap up this panel by thanking everyone. A round of applause for everyone. I really think what you highlighted was the changing face of manufacturing. You all talked a lot about technology, about innovation, about the skill sets of your employees, but more importantly, I think you talked about how manufacturing is changing to be mass customization. The artwork, the design, what you guys all have put into your companies is amazing. Great stories of great successes. And I think the last point, and it's been touched on a number of times, but maybe the last thing I'd say is one of the things that really needs to be done is we need to celebrate manufacturing a lot more. Your stories, what you guys do in your companies is awe-inspiring, from big to small, from multi-billion-dollar multinational companies to 10-person shops. The things that you make are great, and there's thousands, literally tens of thousands of stories like this across the country, across this region. We don't celebrate manufacturing, and it's why manufacturing isn't cool in Canada anymore. We need our political leaders, we need our educators to stand up, support manufacturing, support what's made locally, so we can support these great companies. So again, thank you very much, and great job.
Great job. Everybody, don't go anywhere. Just hang around a second. Just while the whole team is up here. And skilled trades, we've been talking about this now for 3 or 4 years, and County, Rachel, we've had great partnerships, and it's a lot about a can-do attitude too. And I think we've really embraced the idea that we will make skilled trades a competitive advantage. So just shifting gears a bit though, I wanted to think about how we sort of came here, and it's the marriage, the union, if you wish, of advanced manufacturing with healthcare. I want you to look around the room and think about the partnerships, as was just mentioned by educators, and think about sort of the strides we made and build on that base. And I think that was a lot of what Doug said in his remarks. What really impressed me, though, when I listened to the 5 of you, was the diversity in the sense of the production of goods, albeit in wood or in fabrics or plastics and metals, and diversity in the sense of being a boutique, Christine, or a large-scale manufacturer like Techform. Diversity in the sense of local versus global. And given this diversity, we're really well positioned to grow our market share even more so in this evolving and changing economy. So I'd like to thank you all for your unrelenting passion. I want to also thank Matthew. Look at this. We got 2 made. Huh? 2 made. The Heart of Georgian Bay.
Hopefully they're made here.
Yeah, made here.
Yeah, that's good.
Made in North Simcoe. So I want to thank Matthew before I call Doug up. Thanks so much. So thanks to the panel. You guys can actually, unless you want to stay, you can leave. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Doug Ewan. I'm not going to read Doug's bio. We know lots about Doug by now. But what's really important is last night he was in the city all week, and we were having dinner, as you know, with Jeremy. And then Doug and his beautiful wife Jennifer walked in to the boathouse. He got home about 7:30, and she sort of laid into me a little bit about today is her 30th birthday, I think, Doug? 30th. Yeah, she'll like that. Okay, is that on tape? 30th birthday. Yeah. So when we picked this date, we had the election in mind, we had this in mind, and his wife's birthday in mind. And anyhow, it's all worked out, and I really want to appreciate Doug for taking half of his wife's day today and maybe we'll send us something, we'll see. And let him sort of tie a ribbon around today's events and close, so you won't see me anymore, and then we'll keep you in time for lunch as well, okay? So thanks for everything today. It was a great day, and over to my friend Doug.
So let me just start by asking a question. How many people, after you've seen today, how many people think manufacturing in Canada is dead? Okay. More importantly, how many people think manufacturing in North Simcoe is dead? Exactly. And that's the message we want people to take away from here. Not only is manufacturing in North Simcoe alive, it is thriving, it is innovating, it is moving ahead, and it is bleeding edge. And that's what we want to show the world. That's what we want to bring to the world. Hopefully what you've seen today is this conversion of healthcare and this along with advanced manufacturing. These two industries starting to come together here in North Simcoe. From our first panel, you saw a number of different things. Community passion around healthcare. We spoke about the obstetrics that was to be taken away, but a passionate community that stepped forward and said, no, this is important to us. This is something we need. So you have passion in this area. We have infection control and a local North Simcoe answer to infection control that can be adopted globally. With Frankie and the MediFlow Sync and the OzoFlow, recognizing the cost factor as well, and continuing to innovate, continuing to develop. We have the issue of an aging population, increased dementia within society. We have increased mental health issues in society, and a company that's stepping forward again with Abby to step into the gap and fill the gap and help develop and innovate. You see local engagement between Jarlette Health Services, with Hillcrest Village as well, with Kibi Play, and developing that product collaboratively and moving ahead. We saw what we have going on here from an innovation standpoint in North Simcoe. I'm not going to revisit all of those things. What you see here, though, is you see this go-to environment. That when people want to get things done, when people want to see how can we fill this gap, they're coming to North Simcoe. They're coming to the companies in North Simcoe because we have that can-do attitude. We have that ability to think creatively, to think forward, to identify what is required, and then fill that gap. There's a creativity in this environment. There's a creativity in this community that I don't think you see on a per capita basis. We're a small area. I don't think you see this in other areas or other communities. There is a passion for what we do here. There's a passion in this area, and that passion is driven by a couple of things. Number one, it's driven by the desire to be here. I moved here 27 years ago, and I moved here for the purpose not to just come and work at TechForm. I moved here for lifestyle. I moved here for quality of life. And in order to have that quality of life, I need places like TechForm. I need places like Kibi Play. I need places like Lakeland and Maurice so that I can be creative, so that I can do the things that I want to do within the community, within the environment, and hold the community up and help the community prosper. So what you're seeing, all of this innovation, what I believe is an innovation hub in Ontario, not just with companies like TechForm or ZFTRW or Raytheon that are the larger employers, the more visible employers in town. We have 7,000 people employed in healthcare and manufacturing. And if I just look at the manufacturing side of that, it's not made up mostly of our companies, the larger manufacturers. It's made up of a myriad of small innovators who are continuing to grow, who are the next family business, the next TechForm of 1971, launching and growing toward the future. And all of that is leveraged in this environment of collaboration, this environment of partnership, of community engagement. We talk about the power of 4 when we talk about EDCNS. I think Roy talked earlier about actually the power of 10. You have EDCNS and the 4 municipalities, Tay, Tiny, Penetang, and Midland. And Scotty, where are you? Right here. Tay first. You notice that one. Tay went first. We have the County of Simcoe. We have Georgian College. We have our school boards. We have our provincial government, and our federal government through Bruce Stanton and now through Jill Dunlop. All of these groups working collaboratively together. And that is something that I will tell you, and I will tell you with confidence and with conviction. You will not find this level of collaboration between municipalities, levels of government, private industry, and schools in any location, not just in Ontario, not just in Canada, but throughout North America. You will not find this level of collaboration, this level of passion, this level of commitment, and this level of drive. It is something that is unique to North Simcoe, and that's what we leverage in the market. So if you want to do a study in breaking down silos, come on in and see us. So in this case, I like this. Roy coined this one for me when he sent me some notes and some ideas. In North Simcoe, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 = 10. Because we can leverage off each other to make things even better. So we lean in North Simcoe. How many cliches can I put into one speech, right? When we take a look, our manufacturing profile? That's not on this one, okay. We have our manufacturing profile for North Simcoe. We are developing one now in agriculture, which is another pillar. We're also developing one for healthcare and moving ahead with that. So I'd be remiss if we didn't do a little bit of thank yous at the end. I realize that I'm the only thing standing between you and some lunch or your boat if you're heading to the dock. So on behalf of EDCNS, a big thank you goes out to all of our presenters. There was a lot of preparation that went into this. Hopefully you agree that they served up some really terrific information and really reinforced manufacturing converging with healthcare, and that was the right focus for this year's summit. Thank you also to the County of Simcoe, the 4 municipalities and the mayors who continue to support the mission and continue to be committed to working together to drive this forward. Also a thank you to the Summit Planning Committee, Roy, Sharon, Veronique, Taylor, mostly sitting down here, Mark, Brent, and I guess, well, Roy, you can thank me later. Just a great job with all of the details, and even the AV. We might have had a little bit of a rough start, but the AV worked out in the end, so we're very happy about that. Also thanks to the Midland Cultural Centre for their support in staging our 3rd summit, but very importantly, a special thank you to our guests in the audience. Number 1, the local people who are already investing in our community and know what that investment means for you and are looking to invest and grow with us further. And I'm also looking to the people who are here from out of town. Maybe you're here kicking the tires, maybe you're here because it's an early start to your weekend, but that's our point. This is a great place to be in terms of North Simcoe. And we hope what you've seen here is you've seen something in North Simcoe that maybe sparks just a little bit of an idea, a little bit of a thought that maybe we can be your next expansion point. And finally, we will send you a very brief summit feedback survey over the next few days. And we would really appreciate your participation in the survey because it helps us to identify where we were strong and where we can improve a little bit. And once completed and returned, we have a little treat for you. We're going to send you a video link capturing today's summit. So once you return your survey to us, we'll send you a little bit of a video link. So now we want you to join us for lunch. Take an opportunity to meet and network with people who love to live, work, and play. Right on. Have a great afternoon, and thank you for coming.